Good afternoon. Happy Saturday, everybody. We're having yet another Megastorm stream, such as we did right before the playoffs started. Tom Ray was the first guest last time, and he is the first guest this time. Sir, welcome back. Thank you for joining me.
No, it's great, and it's always wonderful to talk hockey when things are going so well for the Canes, and when the Canes farm team Chicago also doing well. Life is good.
Absolutely. So, what are your thoughts so far on how the team is doing? I'm personally very impressed, but I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, for sure. I mean, they've won seven straight, so I think that kind of tells the story. Uh, if they win their next one, that will be a record. So to kick it off and play so darn well, and these are tough games in many cases. They're hanging in there. They're working hard to play the games that are close, and I think that's something that is great to see. We're seeing some other things happen as the series go on as well, which have concerned us. We're seeing some movement on the power play, which I think is going to be great as they start to move into the series. And also, we talked about this before. Their top line has started slowly. They were counting on some other folks to get it done, and I think that may be the other thing that I'm really excited about with the Canes is they're doing it by committee. So, some of the folks aren't quite firing on all cylinders. You're seeing others step up. And of course, what can you say about Freddie Anderson?
I'm impressed. I would like to say I'm not surprised by Frederick Anderson's performance, but I knew he would step it up in the playoffs. But to be this good was not what I expected.
Well, he said some things in the post-game interview the other day that kind of surprised me a little bit. Wasn't aware of this, but he's made some changes to his game. He's wearing different pads now. He's doing some other things that Coach Paul Schoenfelder has been working with him on, and you don't hear much about this. These are the things that are going behind the scenes, and they're working away. And you just think a veteran like Freddie is just playing his game, and how it turns out, it turns out. But as we're hearing now, he's been working hard to refine his game, and those changes, those subtle changes, obviously they've been incredible so far in the playoffs.
Yeah, they have, and I love hearing broadcasts talk about stuff like that, because the gear does make a difference, especially when you're talking about goalies. And like Henrik Lundqvist even asked him, referencing the interview we're talking about, if he was doing like a
Right.
36 plus one pad or something. Something like that
Correct.
makes a huge difference, and I think that that's really cool stuff to talk about. Whatever he is that he's doing, it's paying dividends.
Well, I think where Freddie was going with it, of course, was that he's a lot more nimble. He's wearing a smaller pad, big guy, and one of the things they were saying as well that was kind of fun is that he is a big guy, but he doesn't look as imposing as some of the other big goaltenders, which kind of stated again that he's trying to be a little bit more nimble with the equipment he's wearing, and boy, I tell you, he's making the saves. And the other thing that we're seeing with Fred, I think, which is great, is he's squaring up against these players that they're coming in and he's making it tough for them. He's not leaving a lot of room. And even some of those posts that were hit the other night that when the game was close with Philadelphia, I think they hit the post simply because there was no room. I mean, if they had not to hit the post, I think they probably would have been bouncing off of Fred anyway. So he's getting positioned very, very well. He's calm. He's quiet in goal, as Trip Tracy would like to say. He's very, very quiet these days, and he's leading by example. And one of the changes this year, for as we talk about Fred, he's well rested. I mean, goodness, he didn't have a tough season. Of course, he missed a good part with injury, but then because Brandon Bussey was playing so well, he didn't play as much. And of course, during the playoffs, they've had lots of rest time. So if they can knock off Philadelphia early in this series, again, Fred's going to have some days to kind of, just chill and prepare for the next series. So I think that's another big difference. The other thing I'm wondering, and I'd check with you on this, when do you think Brandon's going to show up?
Well, I don't think I should Carolina win tonight. I don't think you see him in the playoffs outside of Freddie getting injured or having a bad start. I personally don't believe that. Um,
Okay.
in the event that Carolina goes to a game 5 in the series, I think you might see him there because it's a more favorable situation when you have last change in front of him. That's the one situation where I think that you might see Bussy in the near future. Other than that, and then there's also the factor of whether Kochekov would potentially go in
Oh,
before Bussy. So I don't know what Rod's mindset on that would be. I would imagine he would lean towards Bussy just
yeah.
because Bussy has been playing. Um, so I don't think that we'll see him again outside of those circumstances. So hopefully we don't see him again.
Yeah, that's a good story. Well, the only, I guess, where I sit on this is, I think you need to have a second goalie just in case. He hasn't played for a while. This would be the time to actually play him, would be in this series. And I think you're right. If they head back for game 5, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the call. Um, he played very well at the end of the season. He had a little bit of a lull. Sure, he got his contract, and after the Olympic break, he was not as sharp. But boy, he came on strong at the end, and we know just how well he played. Boy, for a stretch, he was incredible. So I have no concern with Brandon Bussey jumping into goal as well, and I think that gives the Canes a very, very strong position
I agree.
because, yeah, again, you never know if Fred gets injured or whatever happens, you've got to have your next guy in line. But they got 2 guys, so they're in pretty good shape. But yeah, Frederick Anderson is definitely a big story, and he's leading all goaltenders, of course, with his very, very gaudy numbers, which right now are stupid. They're like 102 goals against and a 957 save percentage. I don't know if I've seen numbers like that after 7 games in the playoffs for any goalie ever. I
Not
mean,
that
I
I can
don't.
think of.
Yeah,
At
I
least
don't
not in
recall
the
that.
not in this era. Maybe in the 90s
Yeah,
and the dead puck era, you might see
yeah,
numbers like that just because you were lucky if you saw 3 goals scored
yeah,
between two teams in a game. Now, speaking
yeah.
of Frederick Anderson's numbers, you can't see it, but I have my laptop here and I have
Sure.
his NHL Edge data pulled up. Here are his save percentage is in all situations divided by high, medium, and low
Yeah,
danger shots.
yeah,
In all locations, he has a 957. Anything above 900 is good. Anything above 950 is outstanding.
yeah,
High danger, 918. Medium danger, 978. Low danger, 100%
yeah.
saves. So being above 900 in high danger alone is impressive. But
Oh,
this
it's
is
incredible. Yeah,
insane
yeah,
how good
yeah.
of a goalie he's been. I mean, that's no discredit to the defense in front of him, but there's been a few times he's had to bail the team out in this postseason.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, you had connect me with a breakaway. So, I mean, how about, that could have set the tone and changed things dramatically in the last game. So, yeah, for sure. And Martone's had breaks, and they've had a number of opportunities with the Flyers. I think, again, the way the Canes play, and we've seen this, we've seen it all year. They will, they'll dominate a game, and then they'll, give up a great A just out of the blue. Somebody makes a gaffe and somebody's clear, and then they go. And we saw a lot of that with Bussy when he first came in, making those incredible saves. We'd sit there and watch these circuit saves and go, "You got to be kidding me!" And that's what Fred's doing now. He's just, but he makes them look. He almost makes them look routine, which is maybe the bigger story. Like they're getting great opportunities, and he's just making the saves. And sometimes you don't realize how good the opportunity is because the save looks so natural for him. So for sure, he's on his game. He's a story that's going to continue. And if the Canes have goaltending like that back to our starting comments, that's huge because they've historically had good goaltending, and that's what Rod's always said. If I can get good goaltending, I think we're in pretty good shape. If they get great goaltending, of course, boy, that takes it up a notch. But while we're talking about that, someone that I've just been incredibly impressed with on the blue is K'Andre Miller. He has just been something else. His numbers are pretty darn good. He's averaging over 23 and a half minutes a game, so he's definitely getting his workload. He and his partner Sean Walker are both +7. They've been just rock solid out there, and they're going in all situations. And Miller's now on the power play. He's been filling in for Alexander Nikishin on the second power play unit. But I just think when he's on the ice, I feel very comfortable. I just feel like everything's in good shape. And it's interesting because I was watching one of the Kachuk podcasts. The Kachuk guys do their podcast, of course.
The
And
Wingman one. Yeah, I love that
yeah,
show.
yeah, exactly. And I was watching the last one, and they were talking about, Brady was talking about sticks, the stick work of the Canes, right? And of course, he featured Jacob Slavin, who's probably the best in the game. But I'll tell you what, Keandre Miller's not far behind him. He does some incredible things with his stick. You see it all the time. And the other thing I saw the other night, which was thrilling for me with Keandre Miller, was a heavy, heavy game. Boy, he was right in there pushing and shoving and battling. And I don't think I've seen that as much with him in the past. So that was kind of nice to see because he was taking his big shape and and laying it on the Flyers pretty darn good.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I talked about when Carolina initially acquired Keandre Miller. So the day that happened, I was actually streaming with Griffin AB, like, because we were doing a free agency day stream, and that's the day
Yeah.
that trade took place. We were I was not mad about that trade at first. I was just kind of bamboozled by it
Okay.
because, now Carolina has 4 left-handed defensemen now if you don't send one back the other way. Well, you knew Nikishin wasn't going anywhere. You knew that Slavin wasn't going anywhere. Gostisbehere going somewhere was incredibly unlikely at that point. So I was curious how that was going to work out, but I was very happy about, looking at Miller and acquiring that player.
Oh yeah.
He, as far as his stick work goes, one of the things that he said is that he had always tried to model his game after Jacob Slavin in that
Yeah.
regard, and now he's learning directly from him, and you can see that reflected in his gap control because he can skate. He's always been a good skater, especially for his size. When you combine that with the knowledge, because gap control is a mental thing more than it is a physical one. You can be an outstanding skater and have horrible
Yeah.
gap control.
Yeah.
Keandre Miller, that doesn't matter now. And where he's not able to use his gaps, not able to use his skating, he's able to use his frame. He's able to block shots. He sells out like crazy. He very fearless player. And like you said, he's ramped up the toughness on it. And just for the numbers here, I've got his numbers pulled up at 5-on-5 on Natural Stat Trick here. In the, let me make sure I've got the right year here. Let's see. So his Corsi rating at 5-on-5 is 59.92. His Fenwick is 59.41. Shots for percentage 61.31. Goals for percentage 100. There have been 7 goals scored and none against while Keandre Miller has been on the ice. That is impressive. Expected goals for, he has a 56.10 percentage there, and in high danger chances is the only category where he's below 50%, and that's not by much. It's 20 to 22 for 47.62. That's just his 5-on-5 numbers. I can only imagine what this looks like combined with his penalty killing numbers.
Oh yeah, he's incredible. And you know what? I mean, you said it right too, that he's a great skater. He sees the ice well too. Like, one of the things I really like about Keandre Miller is he doesn't give the puck away. He doesn't cough it up. He doesn't. You don't see him under pressure doing kind of dumb things and getting caught. And he just continues to impress me more every day. And you know what? It's not surprising, I guess, when you think of it, because the Canes have historically taken players like Keandre Miller who are, high potential, and kind of stalled in their game where they are, and they bring them in, and for whatever reason, the Canes seem to have the magic to get them to that next level. We've seen that a number of times. And once again, Eric Tulsky and his crew doing the job in deciding to acquire Keandre Miller, and of course using some of the assets from the Rantanen trade. So it just, you kind of look back and say that there's just so many things that have gone right for the Canes.
Speaking of players acquired from the Rantanen trade, Logan Stankoven, remarkable so far.
Yeah, Stankoven, it's funny, when we went into the playoffs, you'll laugh about this, on the Storm Tracker podcast, we picked a player or players that we wanted to keep our eye on during that series, and I selected Stankoven. And, I was thinking that, last year he was great in the playoffs, right? And he's a guy that he can score. He's got a great touch. He's in and around it all the time, and playoff hockey is really that kind of game, right? It's you're in pushing, shoving, trying to get position around the net, trying to bounce pucks off, players or deflected in front of the goalie. And I've always felt like Logan, that was really a strong part of his game. And as it's turned out, of course, we've had the incredible resurgence of Taylor Hall that goes along with the success of Logan. Those guys seem to have some real magic. And of course, Blake and Stankoven as well have tremendous magic. So, you put all those things together and it's just it's an imposing line. Now, the last couple of games, they've not been, dominant, but they've certainly been effective, and they will continue to be effective because of the way they play. But Stankoven is, he's, and I think we talked about this before. He kind of decried, the suggestion from a lot of folks, and we questioned too. At the deadline, we were talking a lot about, do the Canes have to go get a centerman? I mean, how can we expect Logan Stankoven to go into the playoffs and be able to handle, the kind of workload he's going to get? And yeah, I mean, to this point, it's pretty well thumbs up.
Yeah, I would say so as well. And speaking of Logan Stankoven's numbers, and that line has been Carolina's best by a country
Yeah.
mile.
Yes.
He is currently sitting at 63.32 for Corsi, 63.58 for Fenwick, 88.89 for goals for percentage, and that is 8-1 at 5-on-5. Let's see. Expected goals percentage, 70.72. And then at high danger chances, 67.57.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing job by that line, especially considering two of those players are considered undersized. Now, even though both of them are shorter, Jackson Blake and Logan Stankoven, they're built like upside down triangles. Those are both very strong young men. They might be shorter, but they're not small. And I'm the same height as Jackson Blake. I'm 5'11", so I can't say much about that. But I've been very impressed with how they've played. Jackson Blake, I've seen some improvements in his game as well. I was really worried last year. Yeah. I was really worried last year he was going to get cleaned out really bad when he was, doing the dangles and everything and keeping his head down a little bit. It looks to me like he's cleaned some of that up in his game. There's a little bit of hesitancy to shoot there. He's needs to be a little more selfish at times, but other than that, I really like the progress that I've seen out of him.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, Jackson Blake, for sure. He's a guy that keeps surprising you too, because again, he was not a high draft pick. Certainly a great pedigree with his dad, of course, having played in the NHL for years. But he's a guy that when I watched some of his college action, he dominated seriously, and he did a lot of what he still does in the NHL. Is he'd pick up the puck and he'd just go through people like he had no reluctance to carry the puck and get into dirty areas and try to make plays. And he's continued to do that in the NHL. And I think he's a guy that has confidence. Love to see him shoot the puck more for sure. But that's going to come. And you look at both of these guys, Stankoven and Blake, and realize they've only really got 1 year under their belt, or a year, 2 years, or whatever. In the case of Blake, and hey, they're just going to keep getting stronger and better. And they're also getting smarter as they see some of the challenges that they face, with some of the great players in the NHL. But they're definitely the real deal. And you look back to the deals that were done by Eric Tulsky with these guys. Oh my goodness. I think they're going to age incredibly well. And you've got two guys you can build around up on that front side. And as I mentioned, Taylor Hall has been the ideal kind of complement to them. Here's a guy that, as we know, was an outstanding player at certain points in his career. He was some trophy winners and had some outstanding seasons, and definitely was a guy that you looked at he was a first round pick, 1 overall by the Oilers. You knew he was going to be a heck of a player, and he kind of just he disappeared for a while. He had some injuries. He didn't play as well. And it comes out now that, Eric Tulsky was saying on a recent interview that, the thing with Taylor Hall, you have to realize, is that some of the teams that he played for were not the right kind of teams for Taylor Hall. Like, they didn't really suit his style of game and the way he likes to play. And of course, Eric believes strongly that the Canes were the type of team that would work for Taylor. And guess what? Seems like that's the case.
Yes, absolutely. See, I remember watching Taylor Hall play in years past because, as you mentioned, he was on some teams that just didn't fit him and some that just weren't good, i.e., Buffalo of a few years ago,
And Chicago.
And Chicago. I always thought that he would make an excellent Hurricane just on the speed and the effort level alone. And when you combine the experience that he has with the youthfulness of Jackson Blake and Logan Stankoven on that line, there's a reason he's leading the Canes, or he is leading the Canes in points right now. The last that I checked, that may be different after game 3. But I think that he has had really big influences on their game. The more and more he played with those two, the better they seem to get.
No, I agree, and he's a savvy veteran, right? He's been there. He's been in the show before. He knows what it takes to win in this league, and it's I guess my concerns with Taylor at different times, like when he first joined last year, there were times where he kind of wondered, but he's a guy that he plays hard, right? And he plays heavy, which I think is a great thing for that line. As you mentioned before, the other guys are a little bit undersized, so you need someone that can go in and lay the body on as he did the other night. He crushed Sanheim, and he doesn't have any problem in doing some of that heavy lifting, and I think that's key. And so, along with his offensive talent, he's a hard worker out there, and he's skating, and he can. And that was probably the other question I asked with Taylor Hall was, he had been a guy that when you watched him, he'd pick up the puck and he'd roll down the ice, and he was somewhat frightening. Because when he gets going, he really goes. And he gets that stick way out in front of him. All of a sudden, he's just flying down the ice, right? And I wondered about his skating after some of his injuries. They were relatively serious injuries, and I just wondered if he'd be able to come back to the player that, or close to the player that he had been. And he seems to have done that. He looks like he did when he was flying back in the day. So kudos to Taylor Hall and the roles he's playing on that line. So that line's been incredible for the Canes. And back to what I was saying at the start too was, it's about committee, right? It's next man up getting it done when some of the other guys aren't. And maybe the biggest story has been that top line, right? They really have struggled. And it was great to see Svechnikov get off the schneid and get a goal, and and he's been working hard, but he's been relatively ineffective. And the other two guys, we talked a lot about Seth Jarvis and wondering, was he injured, right? Is he okay? And he's starting to show a little bit of life now. Sebastian Aho, still wondering.
So when it comes to Seth Jarvis, because I actually can talk for days about that line and where it struggled at and everything like that. Three big points I want to make with that. And this is not me making excuses for them because at the end of the day, it's their job to get it done. In round 1, they were matched up against the Pinto line, which is probably the closest thing to the Stahl line across the rest of the league. That's a very difficult line to score against. When they weren't playing against the Pinto line, they were predominantly against the Stützle line, which is almost a mirror image of their line in a lot of ways.
Right.
So, and then they had some, even though Cates is out now, they were matched up against Noah Cates a lot and Sean Couturier's line and all that. Here's something, I posted something the other day, I don't know if you saw it, but it was probably a semi-controversial opinion, and I'm standing by it. Anything that requires two hands is a struggle for Seth Jarvis right now. It's very apparent with his shooting mechanics. He had the one good shot he got off this entire postseason, he scored.
Yes.
Which was in game 2 of this series. I'm personally of the mindset that Seth Jarvis, you want him to be as healthy as possible. So there's two things for that. One, I think you consider taking him off the power play, not just taking him off power play 1, take him off of the power play entirely, because you need 5 guys out there who are good at playmaking, good at skating, and above all, have lethality in shooting. That's where your top 5 best offensive players are supposed to be. Jarvis is not that right now because of the shoulder. Additionally, tonight, Owen Tippett is confirmed out. So Philadelphia's best right winger is out.
Yes.
This is one of those nights where I think you can consider letting Jarvis get a game off to try and nurse that shoulder a little bit, because he's going to be more valuable here in a few days when the next round starts. I'm of the mindset if you can give anybody a night off tonight, other than maybe Eric Robinson, or if there's anybody else that's dealing with something that we just don't know about, I think Jarvis is the guy you give a night off tonight if you give anyone a night off.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be great, but it would never happen with Rod Brindamore. So he's not going to do that. And yeah, I mean, Jarvis has got something. We know he decided not to get surgery in the off season. He wanted to rehab it, and for whatever reason, it's causing him some challenges. And I think, for sure, that line has been taking some of the heavy lifting too defensively, and I get that. And you know what? That's great. But if you carry over the power play, which was the other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about, is those guys are the key pillars of that power play. And one of the things we saw early on with the power play, I think there were two things that concerned me, was just Sebastian Aho was just ineffective. He just wasn't doing much that was going to make a difference out there. And for whatever reason, Shane Gostisbehere was having all kinds of problems. Like, he was flubbing the puck all over the place. He was missing passes. He just wasn't sharp. And you kind of sat back and wondered, why is this happening? Because here, this power play was absolutely lights out from the first of actually from the 1st of December, basically. They were incredible. And, they got up to 4th overall in the league. And, they said, I think the 5th of December, they were 30th. So, I mean, you talk about an incredible run on the power play. Why does it all of a sudden change?
See, that's what I'm wondering about. I mean, there's the default answer of he's playing through something, but it
Yeah.
seems more mental to me with Gostisbehere than it does physical.
Yeah.
That could be incorrect because we're not in the room. We don't know. But
Sure.
he doesn't look like the same player at all. And the funny thing about it was, when we did our first stream, after you'd left, I had Rachel Barkley, Matthew P., and I want to say Jack from the Carolina Craziacs on at that point. And I predicted Gostisbehere would actually lead the Hurricanes in points at this point in the playoffs. And I couldn't have been more wrong. I was more wrong about that than I was about trying Natchez at center. I'm sure you remember that whole saga and how much heat I took for that, because I banged that drum for a long time. Then he went to Colorado, and that experiment lasted one period, not one game, one period.
Yeah.
But I'm with Gostisbehere. I think, see, a lot of people are saying about Jarvis right now, oh, he just needs to, get one or two and he'll be off, off the schneid and everything like that. I don't think that's the case with Jarvis. I think it's the shoulder. Gostisbehere, I think that is the case, that he's battling his confidence right now more than anything.
And I think last game we finally started to see that happening. He got 2 assists and he started to look a lot sharper. And I was really encouraged by that. I mentioned on X a couple of things about that as well. And I really felt like, we started to see Shane playing the way that we know he can. I mean, he had an incredible season, almost a point a game. For the games that he did play. And yeah, he had some injury things, but he's a guy that when he's right as a quarterback of a power play, it's tough to beat him. He's wonderful. And I think the other thing that, we can talk a little bit about this, but I believe that, with Nikishin coming back alongside, Gostisbehere, it changes the dynamic. Mike Riley, good on him for jumping in and filling in, but Alexander Nikishin is a different animal, and I think he gives Shane more confidence out there. He feels like he can play his game, and they have a nice chemistry. They move the puck extremely well together, and I think that I really saw something with that as well. That all of a sudden, you see Shane starting to do some things that are kind of Shane-like. And that was very, very encouraging. So I think you're going to see he's going to start to round into shape again and start playing the way that he can, and that's going to help, generally, because one thing that I really was excited about as we saw that first series and early into this series, of course, we had, before the injury to Nikishin, we had that 5-man unit which Rod started to roll a lot, which was, of course, Stankoven's line with Gostisbehere and Nikishin. And you think about those guys as a fivesome out there. I mean, I love the Gostisbehere and Nikishin pair because, I mean, as offensive, juggernauts, those two guys can kill you back there. And all of a sudden, you've got, get in the offensive zone, and you've really got something that, is putting some fear into the opposition side. So they're back now. I think we're going to see that five-man group together as much as they can do it because they were just so darn effective.
Yes, no, absolutely. Because that's that combination, those five, that eats a lot of possession time, and they defend very well primarily because all those guys can skate. They've got some speed to them and everything like that, and that's the most important part of the man-on-man defense that Carolina runs, which has proven to be incredibly effective thus far. There's always been a lot of questions about that because the modern industry standard, if you will, of running something like that nowadays is the hybrid, zone hybrid style.
It is. Yes. Yeah.
But I also understand why Rod sticks with it because there's not a whole lot of teams that run it. So there's only so much you can do to prepare for that because it's such an effort-based system. It tends to mitigate skill in a lot of situations. That's why when they do give up chances, they're the cream of the crop of high danger chances, the few that they give up. So you've heard of high risk, high reward offense. You have almost high risk, high reward defense the way Carolina plays. It's funny to me, and I feel like Carolina is the only team that really has that formula close to a science, other than the team that won the last 2 Stanley Cups.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're the only ones who I think do it better.
Yeah, oh, for sure. No, I think the Canes do it well. The Canes make up, when we look at, do we think the Canes can make this long run and go, into the finals and maybe win the cup? The Canes make up this year, and there's been a lot of discussion on the broadcast and other places about, this is a little bit of a different team for the Hurricanes. There are some nuances of the team that I think are improvements. The Canes' depth is strong. I mean, we haven't really talked about, Jordan Stahl's line, which there are some things that really jumped out at me, of course, in the last game. I mean, Stahl was a beast. I mean, it's incredible. And if we can get rest for him and Martinuk, boy, that makes a huge difference for those guys. But Stahl was a beast, and 5-on-3, we saw some of the replays on this stuff. It's incredible, and of course, a great power play goal, and then setting up a shorthanded goal. I mean, See, what a night for this guy, right?
My friend Matthew and I, we talked about something in the last series about Jordan Stahl when he's killing penalties, even in 5-on-3 situations like that. He's not trapped in that zone with you. You're trapped in there with him. That's how effective that he is at that.
He's incredible. And I think the other piece of it that is maybe the silver lining with that line is that Nikolai Ehlers is back on fire. He had that little injury setback and so on, but he's back doing what he does best. And again, you saw Jordan Martinuk. He made incredible plays on both, Stahl's and Ehlers' goals. Chatfield's goal and Ehlers' goal, where he made diving plays to get the puck into a place where they could take it in. But Ehlers is, a lot of folks have talked about, is Ehlers, should he be on that line? Should they pull him off and put him on the top line again because it hasn't been going? Or what should you do with Nikolai Ehlers? And I'll stand tall on this one all the time. Leave him where he is. Yes. I think he's great on that line. I think he gives it an offensive touch that it hasn't had. And he's defensively incredibly responsible. So I love him on that line.
Yeah, I'm reluctant to I mean, you want to get the top line going. Everyone knows that. But it is not worth, from a mathematical or a logical standpoint, to cannibalize any other part of the lineup to get that line going when the Canes are winning. And they had their most dominant win of the playoffs thus far in Game 3.
Yes.
That's not a team that you change at all if you don't have to.
No, and agreed. And I guess, those guys, they were tremendous the second half of the season. They were just unbelievable. And Ehlers, of course, had his best season point wise that he's ever had. And again, he started slowly, so he got on to almost a point a game kind of run there. Um, and you know what? I end up usually in the same place in these discussions, and people probably get tired of it. But Eric Tulsky, to me, has just had his fingers all over where the Hurricanes are right now. I mean, you think about, the strategic moves he made and the struggles he had. I kind of laughed. I had done a podcast on my own a couple of years ago. It was kind of when they, all those free agent problems they had. They were up against the cap and they're trying to sign Jake Gensel and they were, trying to deal with, Pesci and Shea and Teravainen and oh my God, it
Nason.
was a nightmare, right? And he's trying to work through and navigate through that. And they okay, they had some challenges and a couple of things happened they didn't want to happen. Of course, they didn't want to lose Gensel, but in the end, he turned around and then signed guys like Sean Walker and Shane Gostisbehere and some of the other guys that are with the Canes now, and they're heart and soul players of the Hurricanes.
See, it's funny that you bring that up about that off season. I remember at 12:30 that day. I remember the panic online was through the roof.
Yes,
Everyone was like, "What is Carolina going to do without Shea and Pesci? What is
right.
Carolina going to do without Teravainen? This, that, and the other." And I remember writing something. I won't repeat exactly what I said because there were some explicatives in it. But at 12:30, I wrote, "It's 12:30 on July 1st. Everybody calm down." And that was before Gostisbehere was signed, because I had no idea he was coming back. Because I was a little bit
No,
annoyed about Shea walking, but then when I saw Gostisbehere was coming back, and I made my one of my famous statements that I think Gostisbehere is a better player than Shea. I always have, and when I saw what the team had constructed, when you look at Walker and Gostisbehere, I knew those guys were going to get paired together because that pair was made, and Gostisbehere and Nikishin are kind of the same thing now. That
yes,
pair is made to supplement the dominant offensive zone time that Carolina has. They're going
yeah,
to generate a ton of chances. They're going to generate a ton of shots. Those two guys combined are going to do a lot of that. You might as well have at least one pair that does that when you know you're going to live in the other team's offensive zone.
yes,
And you love to cycle the puck low to high and take point shots and everything like that. I don't think that off. I never thought that off season was going to be catastrophic by any means. I thought
yeah.
that this is a good transitional period. Like sometime in 2 to 3 years, and we're currently at 2 right now. Sometime in 2 to 3 years, the team is going to be back to form of where they were before or better. And now I would say they're better.
No, I think they're better. And in fact, when you remember, the some of the discussion back that season, would the Canes actually make the playoffs? And I remember some of the folks talking about that and saying, "Oh my goodness," And of course, they did a lot better than that. But yeah, I think one of the things the Canes have really tried to do in recent years is they brought these players in as they've made these moves, and maybe the only one that we can look at that wasn't of that kind of genre, if you will, was the Rantanen trade. But the players that they've been bringing in are Rod Brindamore players. They play the style of game the Canes play, and you can look at any of them and you say, you know what, they fit like a glove, like it's insane. And that's one of the reasons I think the Canes continue to have success year after year, is there's a formula for this team. And you hear the broadcasters always talking about this Rod Brindamore hockey, and this is how it is, and that's fine. It's not, there's no magic here. And they go and they look high and low for players that they think are going to fit that.
See,
And
I love that phrase. There's no magic here. This isn't magic. This is elbow grease
you
with
know,
this team. It's just hard work.
it is, and they outwork the other teams, and that's when the Canes are successful, when they're playing their game with their, sometimes, and it's a long season. You can get a little bit frustrated with they'll go through a stretch, but doing this game in game out is incredibly hard. I mean, it's the demands are massive. And that's one of the reasons I'm thrilled this year the way that the playoffs are going for the Canes, because they're getting a break. Okay, they're having a chance to recharge the battery a little bit and maybe even get some practice time in, which is rare, as this season certainly has been the case because of the constriction of the schedule after because of the Olympics and so on. And all of a sudden now you've got hey, let's work on this or let's work on that and let's have a day and just go out and do whatever we do. That's huge for the Hurricanes because their game demands so much of them. And I think that's, as we look at going forward in the playoffs, it's going to get tougher to get those breaks. So that's why I would like them to end this series quickly, so they can just, okay, let's take a step back and get ready for the next one. And it's going to be either Buffalo or Montreal. We don't know who.
I'm
And
expecting
it'll be a
Montreal
challenge.
personally.
Oh, I believe it's going to be Montreal. And watching them, and certainly last night's game, it was pretty clear that they've got a message for the Sabres. But I don't write the Sabres off. They're going to push hard, and my biggest hope is that it's a long series and it's a tough series. We watched Demidov went out, and I thought, oh boy, if he's knocked out, that's a loss for them. But he came back later on. But the other thing we're going to see is injuries. Teams are going to face it. Other teams are going to face it. These games are tough. I look at the Ottawa series, it was tougher than I think the Philadelphia series. But you look at a series like that, and the other series are probably going to be like that, where you're going hard and you're pushing and shoving and battling. And, even watching at the end of the game the other night, and I don't know if you saw or felt this yourself, but, some of these battles they get into, somebody could fall, they could hurt themselves, they could get cut, who knows, right? That's how it kind of happens. And all of a sudden you're sitting there, and there's Shane Gostisbehere. He's upside down and turned around, and all you need is for him to get smacked, and he's out for a period of time, right? And it's dumb because the game's over. You won the game, it's over. It's very clear you're the better team. And and then you get some of this battling going on, which leads to potential injury. And that's the one concern I have with some of these games. And you talk about tonight's game and later on, and I'd love to see Nicolas Delorier in there.
That's part of the reason I want to sit Jarvis.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see him. And okay, if you sit out Robinson or you sit out Carrier, I don't really care. But I'd love to see Delorier in there, because if they start to do some of that nonsense that they were doing, he's a guy that he's going to come in and he's going to deal with it.
And they're very familiar with him.
And yeah,
there's nobody more familiar with it than them.
he's and the way it works in hockey or sport in general is that you're my best friend 6 months ago when I was playing for the Flyers, but I'll tell you what, don't you mix with my guys. Like,
speaking of Robinson, talk about bad luck. I'm expecting him to score tonight, though, because I hit him with my patented Robinson to China meme. So he's probably getting Carolina's first goal, because I did that to Jarvis the other day. I AI'd like a Chinese word over his old team.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
And he's not 5 minutes later, he scored. So I've already done it to Robinson. I'm expecting him to get 2 tonight. I swear, right. Every time I do that, it works. It's like Mark Jankowski has played some of the best hockey of his career ever since I started making the Jankowski to China agenda memes. But, see, that's one thing, though. One of the biggest things about the playoffs, and I feel like it's the case with the team itself, too. I don't know about you, but I'm having fun. I'm enjoying this. Last season at this point felt kind of stressful, almost.
Yeah, yes.
This time, I'm enjoying this. I'm having fun.
Yeah, me too. And you're right. I mean, gosh, you get in some of these series and they're tough, right? And you're on the edge of your seat the whole time, and you're gnashing your teeth and hanging on, and you're hoping it's going to go well. This has been one where I think in both of these series, for sure, the Canes are so much better that they'll prevail. They're going to prevail. Is it going to be 4, 5, 6? Who cares? They're going to prevail in these series. And that's why one of the reasons I'm relaxed is I have no concern with that. And it's nice that they're doing it in short order. But, you talked about Robinson and some of his, being snake bitten. I don't know if I've seen a guy get so many great opportunities and not score.
Kotkaniemi.
Yeah. Oh, Kotkaniemi. Okay. Yeah, maybe. But Robinson, he kind of decried a little bit of that with some of his success he had in the regular season. And he's a guy that does get those breaks. He's incredibly fast, and playing on the fourth line, of course. And he had some of this when he was on the line with Kotkaniemi and Natchez, for goodness sakes. They were in effect.
I love that line.
For a period
I absolutely
Yeah,
love that line.
they were great. They were great for a
Yeah,
period of time. And and that, the whole Kokaniemi thing, you bring that up is an interesting one because I don't know a lot of teams that have a healthy guy that makes $5 million sitting on the pines, right? Like he's no man's land, and it's a sad story, frankly.
it is.
I
Because
don't like it at all.
you know how much I like that player.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't like
that's
it
my
at
boy.
all. And I think, I've had a lot of folks ask me, like, what do you think's going to happen? Or, you know, is he going to get is he going to get traded? Is he going to get bought out? And the usual questions we all get. And I believe he'll get traded. There's a team that'll want him for sure, and there's probably a bunch. And he's the kind of guy that if he goes to the right situation, he can be a very effective player. I don't think there's any question. I don't question that in the least. And I think this has just been a real big setback for him. He's lost a whole season, and frankly, we look back to when he was with Natchez and Robinson, just talking about that. Boy, they were a darn effective line, and he was a key part of it. And I remember was it the outdoor game where it was incredible. He had a big part of that as well.
That's
So
why
yeah,
he's on my Stadium Series sweater because of how well he played that day.
yeah, it was something. I remember it well. And so he's a guy that, I hope he goes somewhere and, can re-energize and rejuvenate his career. He's a good man. And you know, but that brings up one question I do have with the Canes is that fourth line. And I'm okay with it. I'm not great with it. I think I was hoping to see more from William Carrier. I've been a big booster of his as a fourth line guy going into the playoffs. Remember, he was really darn effective with Vegas. He was on the line with Nick Waugh and can't remember the other guy in the line, but they were great. And he's a guy to me that you know he can add a lot to the game. Now, one thing he's not particularly good at is handling the puck.
No,
He has trouble holding on to the puck, and quite often it's gone. Now he likes to do one move that occasionally will work for him, which is to go behind the net, come around, and then either try to flip it in the net or find somebody open on the other side of the net and they can tap it in. And that's probably his best offensive play, notwithstanding his 3 assists that he got towards the end of the season. So it's good.
so I think Carrier, where he'll become more effective at, when he starts playing with a team that's a little more asymmetrical to Carolina, for example, if they were to play Montreal in the next round, a team that's Carolina has shown a physical side in this playoffs that we've never seen to this extent, in my opinion.
Right.
And they're playing against two teams, particularly Ottawa. They're playing against two teams that will lay the body, will do stuff after the whistle, and play somewhat similar styles to Carolina as far as how dedicated they are to the defensive side of things.
Yes.
If William Carrier is to play against a team like Montreal, he becomes a significantly more important player because he's the one in there throwing the hits on Lane Hudson and making life hard for him in their defensive zone. He's the guy who's the countermeasure to Mike Matheson and Arbor Jackai.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's where I think he'll become more effective at.
I think so. Yeah.
The Carrier, Jankowski, and Robinson line, I actually was curious about this. I looked the numbers up on them.
Sure.
They're actually so at 5-on-5 they have 1 goal for and 1 against. For a fourth line, that's not terrible in most situations. For Carolina, since you expect the scoring by committee like you talked about, that's a little bit of a disappointment for me.
Yeah.
I think next series though, when it becomes should Carolina advance, when it becomes, especially if it's against the team that you and I both expect to see, when it becomes more of a blue collar versus white collar type of team, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think it's right. Yeah.
Because you have a bunch of speedy, high scoring, a team that can score 3 goals on 9 shots in a game 7 against the Tampa Bay Lightning, which is what they did. That's a white collar team. The Hurricanes are a blue collar team. It's like square peg, round hole. I don't care. Make it fit. That's what the Hurricanes do. So I think those lines will be more effective and leaned upon a little bit more in a theoretical series like that. But that is a little disappointing to not see them have a positive goal differential at 5-on-5 when we've seen how effective those three can be together, even Jankowski.
Well, Jankowski's at his best when he's winning draws. I think that's his biggest asset. He's a guy that, he's out there trying to, he'll lay the body on occasionally and he'll try to get in and do some good work with the puck. But generally, they're just, they have to be a heavy line. They have to be in, hitting the guys in the opposition zone. That's when they're most effective. I don't expect much offense out of them at all. I just want them to keep the other guys from scoring, and that's the main thing. But you mentioned Montreal, and if they're the team the Canes play against, and we know the Canes had some struggles with Montreal this year, something I've noticed that's quite different. It's not uncommon in playoffs, but you've got, Cole Caulfield has not been effective. Okay, and he feasted on the Hurricanes during the regular season, and all of a sudden, you've got their top line. Yeah, Nick Suzuki, he's done some things, but they have not been a dominant line, which we saw many times. And I think that changes the rules again. So if we go up against the Habs, I feel pretty good about it, because the folks that really caused all that grief, the white collar guys, as you call it, I think are being neutralized. And the Canes can do the same thing. And particularly, back to this home ice advantage question. And we talked about that the first podcast we were together, and I said it's incredible and so important, that home ice advantage, because all of a sudden you got Jordan Staal you can put against their top line, and you've got, Sebastian Aho who can go against their number 2 line. And that opens up an opportunity for, of course, Logan Stankoven's line against the lesser line. And it gets interesting, right? So, yeah, I'm okay with going up against either of those teams. I think playoff hockey is a different animal. And the other thing we always look at, and I was watching Vegas last night, and I was thinking the same thing, is teams that have been there, it's a huge advantage.
I agree. And here's one thing I think about with a theoretical matchup with Montreal, but I can go on for days about this, so I'll give you the condensed version. But the first thing is I'll talk about Buffalo a little bit, because that is Carolina's one true enemy, like throughout history. Like that, they're like they're like the alien invader type of enemy. That's the one we all get together to hate on. So the thing with them, Buffalo's defense. A lot of people like kind of criticize some of the moves they made at the deadline and said they made the team worse. I disagree. They got bigger, they got meaner on that blue line with the moves that they made. So there, Carolina would not as easily chip pucks behind them and go to work on the forecheck, because Buffalo would make them pay for it extensively, especially as the series went on. Personally, I'm not very afraid of Buffalo. I think Carolina would theoretically take them in 6. Montreal, and maybe I'm biased because I was at the 2 games that Carolina played Montreal in Lenovo this year.
Right.
Montreal scares me because there's no such thing as a safe lead against a team like that with the way that they play. But what I think Carolina does in that situation, this is going to sound crazy, but to beat Montreal, theoretically, what I think Carolina does in that situation is back off the forecheck. Let them have their defensive zone exits. Suffocate them in the neutral zone, where there's a lot less space if you manage it correctly, if you manage the ice correctly, and then they don't generate that many scoring chances. But Montreal has a hard time getting the puck back. We saw that with Game 1 with Buffalo. They weren't as bad about it last night, and because of that, they won. Or, yeah, it was last night.
Yeah, it was last night.
I'm a firm believer, if you go to a passive 1-2-2 or a passive 1-1-3 type of forecheck in the neutral zone against Montreal, you beat them at least every game at home when you have last change.
Yeah, when I look at the Buffalo series and where I see it right now, one of the things that I have as a question for the Sabres was goaltending. Alex Lyon, he's come in the past and done a nice job, but I thought he was overperforming, and I think he had a tougher night last night. Jakob Dobush has been tremendous for Montreal. He's a story in the playoffs, and that would be the one thing that I would probably have pause for in a Canes Montreal series would be, is he going to steal a series? He for some reason he's unconscious. He's playing an incredible goal, and so I think quite often that's the story, isn't it? It's the goaltender.
Yeah, I agree. Dobish is a very underrated goalie, in my
Yeah,
opinion, and Montreal has a history of being incredibly good at drafting and developing goalies, i.e., Carey Price. They are
yeah,
excellent at that. Them, the Rangers, and the Bruins are three organizations that are just really good at that. That's something that
yeah,
Carolina seems to be improving in, even though their last. I mean, they had Kochekov and they have Bussy, who, of course, Bussy was a waiver claim, but
yeah.
it does seem Carolina has improved at insulating that position with who they acquire and how they develop them. I think Bussy, after an offseason, particularly learning when and how to handle the puck, so keep him away from Kochekov because Kochekov will tell him to handle it all the time. So let's just not experiment with that. Just isolate them from each other. Don't let them talk, block their numbers, all that. But I think that Bussy, after an offseason where he can, because he kind of got thrown into the fire and did what he did.
Right.
I think an off season and a training camp where he has time to actually like kind of slow down and think about how do
Yeah,
I play
yeah,
with this Hurricanes team in front of me. I still think that there's a very high potential in a goalie there because the only reason he never got a shot was because people like Jeremy Swayman and Sergei Bobrovsky were ahead of him, and
yeah.
those are significant names to keep you out of the crease.
I think he's the real deal. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I like Brandon Bussy a lot. And don't forget, this is like a rookie season to him. So it's his first full season in the NHL. I mean, it's his first action in the NHL. So he's a guy that, yeah, give him a year or two. Like let him kind of, you know, get comfortable with different things and continue to work with Coach Sean Felder, and he's just going to get better. He's got a couple of things that make him an outstanding goaltender. He's a big guy and he moves well. And I think, you can't teach that, right? So he's a guy that with some, again, with some additional work and more coaching, I think he's just going to continue to be a great goaltender. I mean, he's not going to have the numbers like he did the first 20 or 30 games, but I think he's going to be a very, very solid, NHL goaltender. And he's going to be able to play, whatever number of games you think you should play him. So I think, the whole goaltending question is an interesting one. I was kind of going back and forth with Adam Gold the other day and kind of looking at the goaltending side. And I feel like, depending on what happens with Freddie in the playoffs, he may come back. They could bring him back for another year, and they can bring him back in a team friendly deal. Don't forget the other deals they have are relatively friendly for sure. So they could bring him back, and that would give them more time to groom the two guys they have, who
Yeah, see
frankly
what
should be the goalies. Yeah,
see with Freddie, it's not if he can perform, it's how often he can do it at this
yeah,
point. I'm totally okay with bringing him back because you got
yeah.
two other options. You don't have to wear him out during the regular season. So, Tom, this has been excellent, my friend. Thank you very much. I will introduce you, however. This is Carter. Carter is from Carolina Craziacs, another Hurricanes content creator. Very good stuff. I don't know if you guys have met yet, but I
No,
wanted to introduce
Do
the two
not
of you.
believe so.
no, we
Can
have
you guys
not.
can you guys hear me all right? I am at my house, not in my apartment, so I am running a zombified audio setup here.
You sound great. You're clear.
Yeah, no, you're good,
Appreciate
buddy.
it.
Yeah. No, it's great to meet you, Carter. Yeah, I mean, talking Canes hockey when they're winning is probably a thrill for you as much as us.
And you know what? This may come as a shocker, but I am officially, and Brandon might know this, I'm officially rooting for the Flyers to win tonight.
Oh, because
Okay,
you're
that
saying
is a
game
shocker.
five?
I have tickets. So I'm a college student. I go to UNC Charlotte. So that's a good, 2 hours and 40 minutes away from Lenovo.
Yeah.
And I am taking summer classes to make sure I can graduate on time this time next year. Well, that means the only game out of the entire playoffs that I can catch while I'm home for this little break I have is game 5 of the series. And so my only realistic chance, we'll call it, to catch a Canes game is if Philly wins tonight.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be game 1 or 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals where I would have to make a day trip because I have the first half of the summer, I have classes Monday through Friday, which is really annoying, but it is what it is. And so I'd have to make the trip down during the day, watch the game, and then travel back and get back to my apartment at like 2:30. So this would be far easier, and I could go see it with my girlfriend and my family, which would be really nice to do.
Fantastic. Are you kidding?
Well,
and it would be probably a series-winning game.
Exactly.
You're doing the right thing, though, by getting college out of the way faster, because I waited until I was 35 to start college, and I regret that, and mine was paid for by the American taxpayers. I was like, oh, no, it'll be fine. I'll get to it eventually. I could have been done by now.
Look, hey man, it's never too late.
I'm not the one to talk to about that, because everyone that's my age has been out of college for like 2 years at this point. It took me a minute, but I'm happy where I'm at now. I'm a rising senior, and I think I landed in the right place.
I think your chances of Game 5 are pretty good.
No, I don't think they are. I think they're about 10%. I think.
Okay. I mean, I would be surprised if the Canes roll off an 8th straight win. I mean, that's asking a lot.
I feel like maybe this is me being me looking too much into the last game, but I feel like the way the last game ended showed that Philly is kind of just ready to hang it up.
They looked demoralized.
Yeah, they didn't pull their goalie. Like, losing by 4 on an empty net and losing by 3 are the same thing. You still lose. To me, it speaks volumes that Rick Tocchet would not even bother pulling Dan Vladar. Not that they had a great chance to pull him at any point in that game, but I mean, at least you at least give your team a chance. I just feel like the way this series has gone, other than the first 5 minutes of Game 2, Philly has had nothing.
I don't necessarily agree with that. There are a bit different points later in the game that they've been still in the game and could have made a difference. They've had a lot of posts, they've had a lot of close calls, and some great saves by Fred. A lot of the series have been closer than you think. I mean, they won one in overtime. So I mean, and by the way, the overtime was the Flyers outplayed the Canes.
Oh yeah, they definitely did.
So I mean, it's not quite as lopsided as it looks. I think we saw the first significant, kind of gap at this game, and towards the end of the game, like the third period, where they just took off and that was it. But boy, it was 2-1 going into the third. I mean, the game wasn't done. It was still close enough, and there were, I think, Porter Martone hit a at a post, I think, the first couple of minutes of the third period, and it could have been a different game. But there's no question the Canes are doing what they need to do, and that's the way they play anyway. They're not a team that normally goes in and destroys you, and they'll grind it out and win the game.
One of the guys I've been doing some stuff with, his name is Devin. Shout out Devin if you're watching this. He said that the Canes this year are playing and winning the exact style of games that the Canes lost in previous years to lose series. Like, the one that comes to mind is that Eastern Conference final the first time around versus Florida, where, I mean, Rod infamously said that we got swept, but it wasn't a sweep, if you know what I mean. Like, again, kind of a cringy quote because numbers don't lie, obviously. It was a tough series to losing 4 games by a combined 4 goals. But, I mean, that's, for the most part, that's what we've been doing to teams now. I mean, you would not have expected going into the postseason that Frederik Andersen, of all players, would have a high 950 and a goals against about 1. Like,
it's 102.
Yeah. 1.02.
He saved 17 of 18 in Game 3, and his save percentage for the playoffs went down.
Yeah, and like Tom and I were actually talking about his numbers earlier at all locations as far as where the shots were coming from. 918 high danger, 978 mid range, 100% at long range. And his numbers still went down in Game 3.
Yeah.
That is nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still hesitant to believe that Frederik Andersen is going to be able to get us all the way through. Like, it seems, because we've seen this before. We've seen this in years past. I mean, look at last year. Last year, Frederik Andersen was the Conn Smythe favorite up until round 3. And then, we ran into Florida. I mean, that every team ran into Florida, and every team that ran into Florida got Florida last year. Even Edmonton kind of did not look like they were in the same class as Florida in the finals last year.
Yeah. So Florida was loaded, right? I mean, they had made big moves at the deadline. They were loaded. So they were a heck of a team. But, we were talking about, a couple of things that this is a little bit of a different situation for Fred. And you got to keep that in mind, okay, when you look back at previous history. One of them is he's extremely well rested.
Yeah.
And he's getting rest during the playoffs. Okay, so this is a little bit different. And the second thing is, and we were talking about this, he's made some improvements to his game.
He has. And we all clowned him during the regular season because he, in the midst of his like 9-game losing streak or whatever it was, he was like, I don't feel like I've lost my game. I feel like I'm playing better than I have at any point. And we're all like, dude, are you serious? You've lost 9 games in a row and your backup is like 21-3-2 or something. Cool, your game is improving, but your results are not.
But he was changing his game. You see, that's what was going on, as he was making some changes to his game. And we didn't know that. Of course, we don't know that because we're not, we're not privy to that information. But he was working on making some strategic changes to the way he did certain things.
Well, and something else I noted from last game when he was talking in the post game with Lundqvist and Paul Bissonnette.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah,
I think he shrunk his pad size. I mean, Freddie's a big guy.
We talked about that.
he looks small compared to Brandon Bussey because Bussey's just a ginormous human.
But you know what that did for him, right?
Yeah, I mean his mobility and it's noticeable too. His cross crease mobility is so much better than it was earlier on in the year.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about that. I mean, I brought that up because I thought that was really profound. And you wouldn't know that, right? I mean, you're just watching.
Oh my gosh.
How would you know it, right? I mean, who knows? But it's made a huge difference. And that's why I'm saying I'm not sure we can just look back at history and say, okay, he's had his problems after a couple of rounds or whatever. I believe that this is maybe, and Rod said this the other night, this might be the best that Freddie has ever played.
Oh, I mean, undeniably, because he was good in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs last year too. But yes. I'd argue the teams we're playing this year are far stronger. I mean, I'm on the record saying that last year's Jersey team, that was a no contest. Like, I think there are multiple teams outside. Now that's injury related, obviously, but there were multiple teams outside of the playoff line that would have beaten that Jersey team in a 7-game series. And I got a whole lot of hate for saying this because we were fairly new at the time. In fact, I think we created the Craziacs less than a month before Ovechkin broke the goal record. And one of the first really controversial takes that I had was that Washington team was so overrated that they could potentially lose to a wild card. Now, the Montreal team that they ended up drawing was not the strongest wild card, very inexperienced. But, I mean, we saw what happened when Carolina played them in the second round. They completely dispatched them. And the narrative I'm seeing in the media right now, which is hilarious, and I know I've brought this up with Brandon before, going into the first round, everyone's like, spicy pick is like, oh my goodness, Ottawa's on a roll right now. They're going to be so good, like Ottawa in 6. And then the Canes dispatch them in 4, and the narrative instantly shifts to, well, Carolina's only good because they never play a good team in the playoffs. So now we're seeing the same thing with Philly. Philly dispatched Pittsburgh.
That's exactly what happened. Because, okay, here's the funny thing about it. 2019, when the Hurricanes went to play the Capitals, and I lived up there then, so I was like running an insurgency against the Washington Capitals fan base was basically what I was doing then. And they were telling me, oh, we won the Stanley Cup last year. We're gonna wipe the floor with you guys. And I have so many witnesses to this. My exact words to most of them were, I said, if you do not win that series in 5 games or less, Carolina will drag you by your heels into a war of attrition and they will beat you in 7. And that's exactly what happened. Speaking of pads, I'm going to take up playing goalie again.
Are you?
Yeah. I've got an old, I don't know if I'm going to do it on ice. I think I'll do that for a roller, but I've got these old iTech pads. I got all this stuff for free. So I had goalie gear back in like 2014, I want to say, and I was deployed. Hold
up, back up. You got goalie gear for free?
Yeah, a friend of mine was moving and getting rid of it, but this stuff is old. I wouldn't let an 8U kid shoot at me with these pads, honestly. But like, this is
I was about to say.
iTech got bought by Bauer about 10 years ago. That's how old this is. But like, I've got a chest protector. I've got cup, pants, the pillows here. I've got a pair of skates. They're 2 sizes too big, but I can do something about that. I can put the inserts in the toe box to help with that. And I just need to get a mask, a glove, and a blocker. I've got everything else because I had the gear before, and then I was going overseas in 2014. I was going to JSOC actually, and I was like, all right, I'll just sell this stuff and I'll get new stuff when I get back, and I never did. And Yeah, so I'm gonna try that again, but back to the whole goalie pad thing. The gear makes a big difference, and I think that's part of the reason. Freddie's lateral movement is the biggest difference that I see in his game. His ability to go
Yeah.
post to post, and I think that's because he went to the smaller pad. Because the funny thing about it is one other factor we have to consider. Jorge Alves, or George Alves as we call him here in the West. I actually briefly met him many years ago when he was playing in the SPHL. He's a very cool guy. And I was at the gear sale back in 2021 and I ran into him again, and he didn't remember me at all because I'd grown a whole bunch, because the last time I saw him, I was a kid. He was a goalie too in the SPHL, and he played in college. So I think that maybe he might have, been a factor in that, noticing something for Freddie, and he might have had something to do with Freddie making the equipment change. Like, the gear makes a difference. If you drop a PM9 curve that's an inch too short in my hands, and I don't think I'm an amazing hockey player by any means. I'd say I'm a slightly above average beer leaguer for the southeastern United States, so not good.
Oh my
But
gosh.
that would
Hang on, back up. Speaking of beer league, I'll be right back. I've got the ultimate.
Oh, you got the
beer
Guinness jersey?
Yes, I did. Hang on, let me go
Dude,
grab
that'll
that.
be cool. While you're, but yeah, it's like I'm looking forward to trying goalie again, because the little bit I got to play it was fun, and I'll never gain weight again doing that. You burn like 100 calories just putting the damn gear on.
I played goal as a kid, so
Oh, you
yeah, I
did?
had some fun doing it. Hey, Brandon, I'm gonna have to take my leave.
Yes, sir.
But this has been awesome, and anytime we can do this, happy to join in, and great talking Canes hockey, of course.
Yes, sir.
This is
Absolutely.
awesome.
I think should Carolina advance before the ECF, we'll do this again.
Okay, sounds good. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your day, and good luck with the Canes tonight.
Sir, thank you so much for joining us, man. It's always fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Tom's a cool dude.
I think, I don't know. See, okay, you're talking about Alves. The thing I remember him most for is choking a 3-goal lead in the last minute of the Hurricanes alumni versus NC State Ice Pack game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, see,
I think that they gave that game to the Ice Pack. Like, I 100% believe that they were like, you know what, we can't beat these college kids. It's gonna like destroy their morale. And then, well, the next year they did. They killed them. The next year they decided to put Cam Ward in net, and it wasn't even close.
Yeah, no, Cam Ward can not suit up for 3 years and go out there and be better than every goalie in North Carolina that isn't currently playing for the Hurricanes, Checkers, or Marksmen. Speaking of the Marksmen, the only alumni game I've ever played in was with them. That was fun.
That's cool.
That's what got me back to playing, actually, because you know how I told you how my knee was messed up and everything, and I thought about hanging it up. So it's like, what got me into hockey was the SPHL more than it was the Hurricanes. So when I was really little, I was we had the Fayetteville Force, which was in the Central Hockey League, that's been defunct for a long time. So went in there, and I remember I'd quit playing beer league because my knee just couldn't take it anymore. And there was one day I found out that the Marksmen were having that alumni game. And it was only like a $200 fee to play in it or something like that. And this is at the Crown Coliseum. I practically grew up in that building. Yeah, I practically grew up in that building. So I'm like, maybe I can pony up and play right now and see what happens. I had a pretty good game, even though I hadn't skated in a long time at that point. I think I had 2 assists and I was +7, which is, like, having a bunch of points
+7.
I was +7. Like, nope, they didn't score a single.
Defensive warrior. Oh my gosh.
Oh, have you ever seen like the live barn clips and stuff that I post, dude? That's all that I do.
I'd have to go check that out.
Oh, well, yeah. See, the funny thing about it was there was when I was on one of my first beer league teams in Virginia, we were doing we were playing beer league one night and we went into a shootout. And they didn't really know me yet. We went into the 4th shooter and they're like, "Hey, Brandon, do you want to go?" And I'm like, "No, fuck you. I'm not doing that." And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Do you want to lose?" Like, "No, I'm not doing that." Like, I'm the last guy that needs, if you need a penalty killed, call me. But that'll be next week. I'm not doing that. That's not.
Brent Burns in the shootout, right? Just go up there and slap it as hard as you can and pray.
No, more like Mark Jankowski kicking field goal in the shootout. That's me if I get a shot off at all. It's just not my thing. It's like, but no, it's like I've got these like several minute long videos of me like playing defense because that's the only thing that I'm good at. And
That's pretty cool.
I like it that way though, because when I was growing up, my favorite players were Sean Hill, Nick Volleen, and Brett Hedican. I mean, Hedican had an offensive touch, but I'm doing all that, and I got out there, and I'm playing in the building that I practically grew up in. There's not a ton of people there watching, but my dad's there, and I'm skating around, and I'm like, I kind of always sort of in a passive way dreamed about, like, I had other ambitions in life, so I never pursued this, and I was never a great hockey player to begin with, but I'm skating around in there, and I'm like, I'm taking warm-ups on the ice at the Crown Coliseum. Like, that
That's
was
pretty
cool
cool.
for me. And when I did that, I remember I went back to the bench at one point and my knee started hurting and I started punching it. And the guy next to me was like, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." I was telling my knee to stop being a bitch. I
I
so
don't think I'm no doctor, but I don't think that's the best course of action to take in that
no, it was not.
situation.
You would be a much better doctor than me. I can promise you that.
I don't know about all that.
If I went to medical school and graduated, I would trust you to administer medical care to people without ever touching medical school in your life, just to be perfectly honest about it. But I'm sitting there and I'm punching my knee and I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Stop being a pussy." Like, that's the type of stuff I'm saying to myself during this. And the guy next to me, he's like, "Hey, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. There's nothing wrong with me whatsoever." So after that, I decided, I'm like, you know what? I want to play again. And that's when I was like, all right, cool. Let me take the plunge, because I was afraid I was going to need an MRI, because I thought that either my meniscus was torn or my ACL or MCL was cooked. That's what I was afraid of. And I went to the doctor and she x-rayed it. And she was like, "You don't need an MRI. Your patella's just a little bit off, or a lot off center. If you rehab that and strengthen the muscle around it, eventually it'll rotate back to where it's supposed to be.
Okay.
And you'll be fine." So I did about 2 years worth of rehab skating here and there. So what I did was I would skate like maybe once every other week just to see if it felt better when I would do it. And then I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I can actually like move around again and I can actually do stuff. But if it hadn't been for that Marksman alumni game, I don't know if I ever would have played again, because of how much, like, the pain wasn't the problem. It's when I felt like I didn't have a knee anymore. And that's part of the reason this channel exists, was because I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to play
Yeah,
anymore.
I remember you telling me about that at one of the streams we've done.
Yeah, so I'm really grateful that I was able to do that, because I missed playing, man. It was driving me insane not being able to play, because I've been playing since I was like 13, 14 years old.
Dude, I've got a pretty cool shout. So Jack's I think pretty busy today, but I'm gonna give Jack his flowers, because yesterday, somehow, some way, Jack managed to secure an Instagram post collab with the Wingman podcast. Like, yes, Brady and Matthew Kachuk. I don't know how in the world that happened. And then we got one with NHL Humor too. Like, Instagram page is pulling numbers right now, so shout out to Jack.
Well, that's what I told you guys. You guys make good stuff. You're gonna attract people like that. Me, I'm old. They're expecting me to start talking about Vietnam or something any day now. So it's like, no, you guys have good stuff there, man. So like, that doesn't surprise me at all. You got those collabs. And just for the record, I'm jealous as shit of Matthew Kachuk right now, because he got to ride in my favorite fighter jet.
Oh, I haven't seen the video of that yet, but I did see that happened this week. Yeah. I believe is the 40th anniversary of the original Top Gun. And actually, for all of you people that are in Raleigh, here's a good shout: the IMAX theater is showing both Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick in IMAX. I believe this week only. Are you?
Yeah, I'm not up there, but I am
in Charleston, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna go see it, because like, those are my favorite movies. I mean, i.e.
Yeah, I saw the poster over there. That's kind of why I mentioned it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and go. It's gonna depend on the scheduling, but I think I'll be able to make it work. For the game tonight, see, I'm torn. Like, I feel like for me, it's both a win-win and a lose-lose, no matter what happens. Because it's a win-win, because if the Canes win, of course, they move on to the Eastern Conference Finals, not having lost a game yet. And if they lose, I get to go to Game 5, and hopefully they win there. But I mean, if the Canes lose, and if the Canes win, I lose, because I don't get to go to the game. So tonight, honestly, is going to be kind of a stress-free game for me, which I've never really had in the playoffs before. It's kind of odd to think about it that way, but I want your opinion on this. So we talked about rest versus rust at the end of the Ottawa series, because the Canes swept Ottawa and we're going to get a lot of time off. Now, that ended up being what, about 7 days worth of rest?
I think so, yeah. Thereabouts.
Reports are saying that if we sweep Philadelphia, we're going to have 10 days of rest. Is that too much?
Nope, not worried about it.
Really?
No, not one bit. Especially, okay, so there's 3 reasons I'm not worried about that. One, Frederick Anderson has shown that the less he plays, the better he plays. That's part of the reason he's done so well this season, was because he took a lot of it off. You can throw Jacob Slavin in there too, because he's got a couple of issues. The second thing being that the whole team seems to have a good mentality about rest versus rust. And if you saw like where they were doing, forgive me for using this term, they were doing suicides at practice in between waiting for the Ottawa and the Philadelphia series to start. And number 3, Rod won't let them.
Rod won't let them.
No, it's like, see, here's the funny thing about it. I was very critical of Rod in the playoffs last year. I have had nothing but good things to say about him for about the last 3 or 4 months.
Everything's changed, I feel like.
It has. It's like last season, I never have and I never will be on the Fire Rod bandwagon. I never will be. Because I think that he's earned everything that he gets because he saved this franchise from being in Houston or Quebec City.
Exactly.
He was the biggest driving factor. As much runway that he gets is as much runway as he gets. But season,
and then let's think about it this way: like, what were the Canes before Rod Brindamore came back to be the head coach?
They sucked.
ESPN put up a stat that blew my mind. It was ridiculous, and you can probably guess based on the conversation we're having what stat it is.
Oh, the one about how he's played or coached 95 out of 97 playoff wins or whatever it is?
Yeah. No, 90. I think it's games. Is it wins or games? It might be
playoff games, yeah.
It might be, but it could. I think, you know what? It probably is games. Yeah, let's do some research on that. But it's probably
talking. I got you.
It's probably games because I don't think we have that many playoff. There's no way we have that many playoff wins. We've won 1 Stanley Cup, and 1 Stanley Cup is 16 wins. We don't have 97 playoff wins as a franchise yet. Hopefully soon.
Player or head coach in 92 of 94 all-time playoff wins. That is 97.9%. Now, another thing to keep in mind, you want to know how many of those he was the captain for when he was playing? All of them except for the ones in 2002 when Francis was the captain.
Yep.
So that's about 85% of the ones he played in, he was the captain.
I mean, we're at a point now where all that's missing for the Rod Brindamore statue going outside of Lenovo Center is the Stanley Cup win as a coach. Once he wins, and I'm saying once he wins because he will win a Stanley Cup as a coach.
Yes,
it's only a matter of time at some point. Once he wins the coach, like the Stanley Cup as a coach, the statue's going up outside Lenovo Center.
Oh, funny thing about the statue, I want to ask you something. Here's the idea I had for the statue. I think it should be like, this is going to sound kind of messed up, but hear me out. I think it should look like Two-Face from Batman. Half of it being player Rod, half of it being coach Rod, holding the Stanley Cup up. That's what I want to see. Or you can do a back-to-back one.
If Rod does the same, you know what? I think he would do this. I think there's a chance he would do this. If Rod like goes back out on the ice and does the same pose with it that he did when he won it as a captain, 100% you do that. But if he kind of just holds it up with like nonchalantly or whatever, then I mean that idea is kind of out the window. But I really would hope that if this was the year the Canes won it, Rod would kind of like halfway stomp out on the ice, hold the Stanley Cup up, and then look like he's on top of the world. I mean, there's no coach. I think right now in the NHL, there's no coach that deserves a Stanley Cup win more than Rod Brindamore.
Not even close.
No coach in the NHL gets more out of the players that he has than Rod Brindamore.
Here's my reoccurring daydream about it. I know that this won't happen, but if it does, you will see me do a backflip and eat my hat on live stream. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think the players are going to usher him out there and force him to hold it up first. That's always been that's been my reoccurring dream, that they just all grab him and push him over there. Well, I mean, good luck with that because of how strong he is, but they will all push him over there and be like, recreate what you did in 2006.
Yep.
And then they all I just feel like I can see him holding it up that way.
And if it's this year, it's 20 years. Like, that'd be perfect.
Yes, it would.
Now, I know you're saying that Rod's strong and all that, but I mean, normally, who gets it first is the captain. And I know Rod is strong as all, but I'm hesitant to believe that if Jordan Stahl was pushing Rod Brindamore out there, that Rod Brindamore's not going out there. Because as strong as Rod is, he's not Jordan Stahl.
So what we can do is, to make sure it happens, have Nikish and Carrier and Stahl be the three guys who force him to do it. And then my favorite moment of William Carrier in the playoffs was in Game 3 in the Ottawa series when Jackson Blake and whoever it was Jackson Blake and Brady Tkachuk, I think it was, were kind of getting into it.
Mm-hmm.
And Carrier skates over there and grabs Blake and basically pushes him to the other side of the ice and takes the face off on that side. I was like, yo, that's based. I love that. That is hilarious. But that's what I think can happen if you get those three guys. They might be able to do that, but it's like, I went from being the most, I won't say most negative, but I was incredibly negative about this team last playoffs. And this time I'm like, I'm having fun in a way that I've not had in a while.
Well, I mean, it's easy to say that when the team is 7-0, and they've objectively played pretty good teams this year, and they've kind of, won their way. Now, I think what I've really enjoyed, like, there's several aspects of the playoffs that I've enjoyed this year, but what I've really enjoyed is, like, Florida and New York, the two things that they did to us that really, really made us fed up is not only would they beat us on the ice physically, like they would score their goals, get up 2 goals or whatever, and then just start and then start like laughing at us, like, really, you're going to show all this heart now that you're down 3 goals or whatever? And it caused a whole bunch of fights, a whole bunch of penalties, and in years past, our power play stunk, so it meant nothing. And this year, I mean, our power play still has not been up to standard in the playoffs. Like, we're converting at a very low percentage, especially given the 2 teams we've played in the playoffs. I mean, Ottawa and Philadelphia both had bottom 10 power or penalty kills in the regular season. But at the same time, we're doing this to other teams now, where we get up like 2 or 3 goals. Other team gets frustrated, starts picking fights. And you saw last game, Keandre Miller, Jackson Blake, Logan Stankoven, Shane Gostisbehere, and others just laughing. Like, Philly's coming up like the little, like they're trying to stand up to someone or whatever when there's no time left in the game. Like, you're down 4-1, there's 2 minutes left. Your coach has already clearly given up the game and probably the series. And now you want to show the fight? That's funny. I love that we're doing this to teams now because it was so frustrating to see it happen to us in years past.
It was. And here's where the turning point was for me personally this season. Jarvis fighting Gergensons in Tampa. That's where the switch kind of flipped for me. Where I was kind of like, all right, maybe this team can make an interesting Eastern Conference Finals run, which is all I really wanted out of the season. But when I saw Jarvis fight Zemgus Girgensons, I'm like, that's what they've been missing, and they got it.
Well, we saw, I mean, clearly teams in the regular season, especially between like November and January, when there were a lot of injuries in the blue line, teams thought they could do the same thing to the Canes. Like, obviously, the guy to take a run at in years past has been Sebastian Aho. He's not very big, and he's very crucial to the team. And so, if the Canes are beating you, go take a run at Sebastian Aho. Well, we've seen this year that Sebastian Aho now has a ring of protection around him and is able to, call on them to go stand up for him. And even Aho himself has gotten into some altercations this year. I don't know what changed in terms of like the people or personnel. Like, let's see, what do we add this year? We've added Nikishin to the full-time lineup, but we also know that Nikishin himself does not actively seek out fights because he's only had one and he's really good at it.
Yeah.
We brought in Keandre Miller, who I wouldn't say he's like a fighting specialist, but he'll definitely, kind of like Dmitry Orlov, where he'll throw some hits.
He's big and scary too. Like, if
exactly.
he had to fight, he'd be good at it. It's like the guys who don't fight often are the ones you have to be the most worried about, though.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll tell you this, like, I grew up in Fayetteville, so I got into a lot of fights. The ones that I performed the best in were the ones where I was terrified.
Uh-huh. And then on top of it, you got Nikolai Ehlers, and I feel like he's kind of mute in this equation because Nikolai Ehlers, it takes a lot to tick him off. Like, you don't see Nikolai Ehlers go in there and start throwing punches unless there's already some sort of line brawl going, or the one time, I forget who it was, slashed him in the legs and he went and actively hunted them down. Now, The other thing we did, and I feel like this was kind of a turning point. we were all talking at the trade deadline about acquiring that second line center. We didn't do that. Instead, we went and got Nick Delorier for a conditional 7th round pick. Now, Nick Delorier has played one, maybe 2 playoff games. I think just one. I think he came in for Nikolai Ehlers in Game 4 versus Ottawa. So he has not done much in terms of on the ice. But I don't think anyone has had anyone has had a bigger off the ice impact in terms of the team's mentality and physicality than Nick Delorier being in there. I don't know. I think him just being in the building gives the guys a bigger confidence to go step up and, stand up for themselves when something happens like that. Because I feel like we saw that boost, especially after the trade deadline. I can't name any moments in particular, but anytime something got physical, even when he was not in the game, we weren't shying away from him. We're like, we can hang.
Delorier is like my big dog when I'm walking both my dogs together. Because my little dog, my little Chihuahua, will get barky at other dogs when my big dog is there. Because he's like, oh, I got this guy with me. I can do whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
Delorier is the big quiet dog that will engage and destroy when necessary. And the fact that he's just there as a deterrent is enough. So speaking of Delorier, here's something you might have saw my post about this, but I want to get your opinion on it. Seth Jarvis is struggling to do anything with 2 hands right now because his shoulder is foobar. And I'm a little bit in tune with how bad his shoulder is because my dad just had a very similar procedure to what I imagine he would have in the offseason. My dad's shoulder has been messed up longer than I've been alive. He messed it up when he was in the Air Force in 1988, and I was born in 1991. So everything that's gone wrong in the world since then, my bad. But I'm personally considering that Philadelphia is missing their best winger, Owen Tippett, because it's already confirmed that he will not play tonight. I think that maybe you consider giving Jarvis a rest and putting Delorier in. 2 reasons for that. 1, Jarvis's shoulder is screwed.
Yeah.
2, you get to have Delorier in the lineup on a night where there might be a lot of cheap stuff going on.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We saw that with Ottawa. Game 4, it was nice to have Delorier. I mean, things kind of went haywire in that game.
They did.
But a team that's down 3-0. If Carolina gets up by 2 goals tonight at any point, Philly's going to start. I mean, if at any point Philadelphia feels like their season is over, because again, if they lose tonight, their season's done. If Philadelphia feels like that at any point tonight, you're going to want to have Nick Delorier in your lineup because he's the guy who will go out there and take care of business. He'll go sit in the box for 5 minutes. And, I mean, we all love Nick Delorier here, but if you send Nick Delorier to the box and then pick a Philadelphia Flyer to the box for 5 minutes, we come out on top.
Yeah, no, it's a net loss to them regardless of whichever player goes in the box.
It could be a first-line center or a third-pair defenseman. No matter who goes in the box for Philadelphia, we come out on top.
So
not to say I'm against Nick Delorier, but I think we all know that in terms of his offensive production and then his defensive ability, he would be the bottom forward on both teams probably, and is in there really just to be the police officer.
So if we can have Delorier fight Zegras, that would be great. I mean, Zegras would die. I don't want that to happen. But yeah, and then, the third reason being that if you put Delorier in there and give Jarvis a rest, you have to change the first line, which has been struggling. Maybe that sparks Aho and Svechnikov.
See, here's the thing, though. That would have been great until Game 3, but I thought the top line was significantly better in Game 3. I thought that was the first time that they had shown legitimate chemistry and were able to produce at any level. And so if they had had another dud in Game 3, I would have been like, you know what? Let's make some changes. And I don't know what change you make because you also at this point you don't want to shake up the third line because they put up 2 goals last game. Brandon Stalls was on the power play, and you don't want to change up the second line because they're the reason you're 7-0 right now. 5 of those games, if you take away the second line, you don't win. I don't think there's anyone on the fourth line I'd want to move up either. I don't particularly think Eric Robinson has. I think his play has kind of regressed going into the playoffs. Obviously, you can't move Mark Jankowski because then you don't have a center on the fourth line. And I mean, you could move Will Carrier up there, but I don't know if that would be my pick. You know what? This is going to sound completely crazy.
What you got?
This is a Craziacs take right here. And you guys, anyone who's watching this, are about to like flame me into oblivion for this. If we're gonna substitute someone in today, when the Canes are up 3-0 in Philadelphia, I think you have a beautiful opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. Obviously, Jesperi Kotkaniemi is not coming back to the Canes next year. He is about as gone could possibly be.
They've said that before, though.
I know, but he's never been benched for the whole season before, or half the season. They will buy out his contract at the end of the season if they have to. So, hear me out. What better way to make Jesperi Kotkaniemi look like a usable piece than to stick him with Aho and Svechnikov in a playoff game?
You know, that's not a horrible idea. The only thing about it is Kotkaniemi, and it's well documented that I'm a big Kotkaniemi fan, and I hate that how all this has gone for him. The only thing is Kotkaniemi at wing is a horrible player. He's legitimately bad at that. Like, he's one of those guys. It's not normal that a player is worse at playing wing than they are at playing center, but Kotkaniemi is one of those guys, if you ask me. But for purposes of this game, considering how it's probably going to turn out, I would be totally fine with doing that. It gives me
He's
to wear my.
He's a bigger body too. KK's not small. KK's in terms of our forwards, KK's probably one of the biggest ones.
He's 6'4", I think.
Yeah, outside of Jordan, is he the biggest forward on the team outside of Jordan Stahl? He might. No, Mark Jankowski's probably like taller.
Mark Jankowski being 6'4" is like anybody else being 5'10", though.
Yeah, he's not. Jordan Stahl is like 6'5" and like yoked to all mess with dad bod strength. Mark Jankowski is kind of. But I mean, maybe having KK in there is not a bad idea. And if things are going to get physical, I mean, KK has shown that he'll throw some hands around. Like,
he got beat the shit out of who was it a couple of years ago in St. Louis? Alexei Torpachenko. He tuned him up.
Yeah, and so I like KK. I hate the situation that we're in right now, and I hate that things have not worked out in Carolina. I am a firm believer that in a different system, I think KK can be at least better. Yes. Like, he's got potential, and it's just not going to be utilized in the right way here. I don't know why. I can't pinpoint the exact reason as to why. But for tonight, I think that it does us more good in terms of the long term. I want to bring something else up about long term in a second. But I think we're better served putting KK in tonight for the long term than Delorier. Because I think that the odds of KK having a good game while playing alongside Svechnikov and Aho are generally all right. Like, if the top line can get going, he can get a point. And that would do, I feel like, wonders in terms of him getting a spot. Because I don't think teams are going to be trading for him straight up. I think if KK gets shipped out in a trade, it's going to end up being as a piece for something else. Or it's going to be like a 7th round draft pick or something. Basically a throwaway.
See, what I think is going to happen with KK, I think that they're gonna try to trade him, and nothing's going to happen. And when they put him on waivers to buy him out, somebody's going to grab him. That's what I think is going to happen. I could be wrong about that, but that's how I see that going down. I can see a team being okay with taking on the cap hit, especially considering the rise in the cap is going to be double his cap hit nearly. But they didn't want to expend any of their assets to acquire him. So
I can see
that's
that.
What I think is going to happen.
But I mean, again, he's a almost $5 million center who was a healthy scratch. Now, granted, and healthiest scratch on a team who desperately needed center depth too.
Yeah.
So maybe. But again, if he comes in here and puts up a good game, like has a couple big hits, has a couple good shots, and puts up a goal or an assist, immediately teams will want him. Like, all it takes is that one game, and some team will want to take at least a chance on him. I'd say the market for KK right now is basically like 1 or 2 teams who would even consider picking him up. Exactly.
Well, there's one exception to that. And Katie Bartlett, and I don't know if you follow her. She's very good. She does a lot of stuff with Tom Ray, the guy who was on here when you came on. She thinks that there's kind of a place for him in Colorado as a 3C.
Well, I don't think they're very happy with Jack Drury right now.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, though, him fitting in on a team like that. See, here's the thing about it. There's one thing that I've always been kind of mad about Rod, or mad with Rod about, and that's how Kokiniemi was handled. Because, to go back to it, when he was initially drafted, he wasn't supposed to be drafted that high. Most of the mock drafts had Philip Zadina, who is no longer in the National Hockey League, had Philip Zadina as the 3rd overall pick. Bergevin took Kokiniemi because Montreal was very desperate for centers. Very desperate. And about the only way you get top 6 centers is to draft them. You have the occasional exception, i.e. Sebastian Aho, who was supposed to be a 70-point offhanded winger, who Rod, basically like Infinity Stoned him into being
a good center.
To being an amazing center. He's at least a top 10 guy. When he's playing really well, you could argue he's in the top 8, maybe. So, like, that can happen. What I think is going to happen with Kokiniemi, I think he's going to go to a team, a bottom feeder team, and get claimed off of waivers when he goes for the buyout. And I don't think he spends the entire season with that team because he gets acquired by a contender of some sort before the trade deadline next season.
And you know
he's
what?
A good player.
Yeah, good for him if that happens. I hate that things haven't worked out here. It's kind of similar to Marty Necas. I mean, it's different in a lot of ways, but it's just not going to work here. I want to talk about something because I'm going to have to go here in a few minutes. I want to discuss. So last year, going into this year, things happened with the Florida Panthers that obviously caused them to miss the playoffs. And so we've talked about how we think that Seth Jarvis is going to have to get shoulder surgery in the offseason. And a couple of these other guys that are pretty banged up might have to sit out as well. I mean, Jarvis is the notable one. Do you think that the amount of playoff games is starting to wear on Carolina to a point where we could have like a Florida year in a couple of years where like just the wheels fall off and we are not in the playoffs?
Yes, without a doubt. So Adam Gold and I actually got into a thing about that.
Oh, goodness.
No, I'm dead serious. So it was around the trade deadline. He said that, the Canes don't need a 2C, which it turned out that being the case because Stankoven has stepped his game up thus far. I'm still not convinced, and I'm not allowed to be until July 1st of 2034 for those who know the meme. But the thing about it is that I was like, if that's this team's mentality that they're just trying to insulate their current lineup and grab a 13th or 14th forward or a 7th or 8th defenseman to go with, they're stacked in the regard of 13th or 14th forwards or 7th or 8th defensemen. Like they have the Justice League of depth players. and you're worried about like doing that. That's why this team's never going to win anything, was my mentality about it. So, that being said, I talked about playoff attrition. It's totally a thing. When Pittsburgh was in its heyday, they had a season where playoff attrition finally bit them. When Washington was in its heyday, they finally had a season where the playoff attrition bit them. I think that is totally a possibility for Carolina, that all these playoff runs with nothing to show for them is going to bite them.
And you know what? Let's talk about it. I think a lot of people kind of use that as a reasoning to pick Ottawa. Like, I bet the wheels are going to fall off for Carolina eventually, right? Now, we didn't have a lot of injuries going into the playoffs, so I mean that's kind of hindsight. Now, I picked Carolina in 7 because I thought Ottawa would put up a good fight. And maybe the difference in us in Florida is like we do have the potential, like, top line winger available in the AHL if we need to bring him up. We've got 7th or 8th defensemen that can actually play like legitimately good NHL minutes. So maybe we would be okay. I think we would survive a little bit. We proved it this year. I mean, there was a point where Ghost, Slavin, and Miller were all out at the same time, and we were still winning games.
I think they won 7 of 10 during that time when all 3 of those guys were out.
Yeah,
it was something crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and it was probably from my memory, I'm pretty sure it was against good teams too. So
it was.
So I think we'll be okay. I don't think we're not gonna have a Florida fall off where you go from Stanley Cup champions to like 7th in the Metro. Now, granted, that's partly because the Metro is just weaker than the Atlantic altogether, or at least for now, and it's probably going to stay that way for a little while. But I don't know. Like I've that thought kind of crept in my head going into this playoff run, and now that we're seeing the Canes dominate the way they are, like it makes you think, like, does this have to be the year? I think
No.
the core is young enough to where we're not in a situation where we have to win it this year, but you always have to worry about the one fall off year. Now we thought that was going to be, God, which season was it? It was the season after we had so many free agency departures, and Rod himself said that it wasn't this season but last season.
Mm-hmm.
Rob was talking about how he just did not know how that team was going to make a playoff run. They made the conference finals, so I would say that team overachieved compared to the preseason expectations. And I'm gonna be honest, this season I had our expectations roughly the same. Next season, I had us in one of my videos. I have us as Stanley Cup champions next year. I can't hear you.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Yep, there we
this
go.
thing's
All good.
old. I want to get a better mic eventually, but I got this one for like 2/3 of its normal price, so I had to take it. It was like 33% off. But here's the whole thing about it. So with that, totally valid to be worried about the Canes having a fall off of some sort like that. I was talking to Tom before you came on about on July 1st of the offseason you're referring to, where Shea left, Pesci left, Nason left, Teravainen left, Gensel, and everybody was terrified. And I was like, it's 12:30 on July 1st. Calm down. That was near what I wrote, with a little bit more of my naval sentence enhancers being used. There were some explicatives in that statement. I was like, this is not that bad. You got a player who, with Sean Walker, who is not as good as Pesci defensively, but he has an offensive upside when he doesn't shoot at dead center mass into the goalie's chest.
Which he does a lot.
He does. It's like
Sean Walker also takes way too many penalties too. Have you noticed that?
He does, but Sean Walker is like, if I could nominate two people on this team for the Do Your Fucking Job award, Sean Walker and William Carrier are the two that I would nominate. Like, as far as like, your role and you just go and do it. So when I saw who they were getting there, I was like, I'm not worried about this. Especially Gostisbehere got signed later that day. It was like 2:00 before they announced that. So I was like, I'm not worried about this team now, but I did think that it's 2 to 3 years out. My original projection was the same as yours. I didn't think it would be this year. I was expecting next season to be it. It still might be. We'll see. But I never worried about that team. As far as the fall off Carolina would potentially have, for every player that you can identify that might need to get something done, particularly Jarvis and Slavin, who are two of the top 4 biggest pieces on the team, you have someone to fill that role. The whole reason Jarvis finally really got his shot was because Nino Niederreiter was hurt for an extended period of time, and that's when Jarvis got looked at. So that opens the window for Nadeau to get looked at. Nystrom's already had a pretty extensive look. Charles Alexis Legault, to a lesser extent, has had a pretty extensive look. If Jacob Slavin goes down for surgery, which I'm expecting both those guys to need it, especially since Slavin is going to play in the World Cup of Hockey in a couple of years if Bill Guerin continues to make good choices. Both of those guys have someone to take their role that have proven that they can do it for at least a short amount of time. And I'm a big fan of Nystrom and Legault. Legault's dad and I actually follow each other on X.
I think Nadeau's dad follows us.
John Nadeau?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, he follows me too.
I did a video. One of the first videos we did was on Bradley Nadeau.
Yeah.
Here's my thing, actually. The absence of Slavin won't even be felt that bad because right now Carolina's skating 4 lefties and 2 righties. If Jacob Slavin goes out, you can move one of your righties, or you can move one of your lefties back to the left side. And I believe Nystrom and Legault are both right-handed defensemen. So you actually, by Slavin sitting out for a little bit, get a good look at a true 3-3 split core. And as for Jarvis, I think Nadeau getting a chance is great. I think the only potential problem with that is once Jarvis comes back, where's Nadeau going? Because he ain't. The odds are he ain't going back to the A. Like, if he goes in and plays the way we know he can, there's no possible way you send him down to the AHL.
I'm not worried about that. just out of the simple fact they made it work when Niederreiter went down and came back. So that's one. I think they'll figure it out. For whatever faults, this team has very few faults, and it's just the significant faults that keep them from winning thus far. That might change this time around, because, like I said, I was negative as hell about this team up until Jarvis fought Zemgus Girgensons, and I'm like, all right, that's what's been missing. So they did it this time. Like, I really feel good about that. And then the other thing is this team doesn't panic trade, because a lot of other teams, if they were offered the situation of trading Seth Jarvis for Nino Niederreiter, they would have pulled the trigger on that without a second thought. Carolina, on the other hand, was like, nah, not doing that. But like you're saying, you get an extended look at Brad. Basically what it is, if you get an extended look at Bradley Nadeau because Jarvis goes down for shoulder surgery, you worry about that problem later. What happens when Jarvis comes back? Well, if all else fails, stick him on the stall line. It's proven to work before.
Yeah, and then just shift things around. Like you'll. I mean, that's a good problem to have. If Nadeau ends up panning out, I mean, you're not going to complain about a guy who's got like an Ovechkin style shot. Like that's not gonna. No one's going to be upset about that.
And as far as Robinson goes, he's scoring at least twice tonight. Because did you see the meme I posted of him?
I have not. I'll have to go look at that.
I've got a screenshot of it. I'll pull it up here because this works every single.
After
time.
After that, I am going to have to unfortunately head out.
He's scoring tonight. I'm telling you, he's going to score tonight because I did this with Jarvis the other night where I like photoshopped the Chinese like takeout box writing onto his Four Nations practice sweater. Not 5 minutes later, in real time, he scored. This works every time I do it.
Can you do it with Sebastian Aho too? Well, on Monday.
I'm saving that because he's going to be more important later. See, when you have the black magic that I have, you can't use it all up at once. You have to regulate how much you do.
Oh my goodness!
So it's like,
well, I'm unfortunately not getting to get you. I'm not going to get to use my black magic. My plan was, we told you about Jack's streak at the Ale House. In an effort to guarantee myself a game 5 to go to, I was going to kidnap Jack and drag him to the Ale House tonight to assure that we lost. But unfortunately, that is not going to be possible. So
that's hilarious. But my friend, thank you very much for joining me. This has been fun like always.
Yeah, man.
So I'm planning on doing another one of these should Carolina advance before the ECF starts. I will definitely have you on then.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate it. You're welcome back here anytime.
All right, take care, Brandon.
All right, buddy. Katie, how are you doing?
Bo, I cannot hear you, so give me a minute to figure out what's going on my end. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I don't know if that did anything.
I can hear you just fine.
Nope, must not have. How bizarre. Let me check something real quick. It's not showing up as muted anywhere on my phone.
How about now? Katie is having some technical difficulties, Matthew.
No, yeah, I saw, but that's all right. Good to see you again, Katie, even though I don't know if you can hear me, but
there it is.
yeah. Oh, we're good.
Now I can hear you.
There we are.
Fantastic.
Okay,
All right.
we had to add Matthew to get it to work. So before
That's
we
right,
get
you're
started,
welcome.
I just want to say Robinson's getting 2 tonight.
That's right. Yep. Because
Yeah.
he's been sent packing to a certain nondescript Asian country on the other side of the world.
That does not manufacture viruses in Wuhan labs.
Not a bit. Nope. Not remotely.
I'm just saying, every time I do this, it works. Look at Jarvis the other night. Not 5 minutes after I posted that, he scored.
There we go.
Yeah,
Well,
we are in awe of your power, Brandon. We're all
I don't
humbled
know.
by it.
I don't know about y'all, but I've been having a whole lot of fun with these playoffs. I really have. Which is
It's been great. You know, I mentioned on the little chat there. It's like I wish I could relax like you. Like that's just not who I am when it comes to playoffs. It
well,
never has been.
I have help right now.
Okay, fair enough, but yeah, I've just never been able to do that. I'm always, and my wife will tell you, I pace around the room. I'm in that rocking chair, like just back and forth. I can't be still. Like in the regular season, it's whatever, but when it's playoffs time, I get wired. But yeah, I've been listening to about a half hour is what I caught before you got me on here. So, like what we're doing so far. I mean, what a run that the guys are on. Like it's just been absolutely amazing. It's been a real treat to watch.
I agree. Katie, how are you doing now that we have your technical difficulties sorted out?
Or maybe we don't. Katie,
Are
you there?
yeah, I'm here. I wasn't
Can
sure
you
if that
hear-
was my end or not, but
Can you hear me
I'm
too?
good now. Yep. I
Okay,
can hear
good.
both of you.
Well, I'll tell y'all what. I am. I've got my laptop here, so it's cool because it's easier for me to look
Buddy.
stuff
I don't know.
up.
My kids are. You might have to bear with me a little bit if they walk in and out of
Dude,
the.
it's all good, man. It is all good. I am very, very happy with how the Canes have played thus far because here's the thing about it. People are like, oh, they're not playing good teams. If you win 7 straight in the regular season in any sport, it's considered impressive. Why is it not the same thing for the Canes in the playoffs when they're playing against teams of which one of them was widely regarded as being built to beat them? Good job, Craig Button. Loosen your bow tie. It might help. I'm really happy with everything that has been done with this team thus far. I want to know what you think, Katie, and then Matthew after that.
Yeah, I definitely think that the Canes have been very impressive so far. And I mean, sure, did either of these teams have one of the top 5 records in the NHL? No, but they were 2 of the hottest teams at the end of the regular season post-Olympic break. And they were scoring, they were getting goaltending, they were making a big push. And a lot went well for them, and that's why, especially with the Ottawa Senators series, it was kind of the chic upset pick was to pick the Senators over the Canes because of how well the Sens had played. And if they hadn't had their disastrous start to the season, they would have finished a lot higher in the Atlantic and wouldn't have even had to face the Canes at all. So, but that whole narrative is just excuses. It's a lot of hot air from those who don't know the Canes well to say that it's less about them and their accomplishments and more about the failings and the underachievements of the teams that they're playing. And unfortunately, I think that even if and when they close out the series, which I certainly hope is tonight, whoever they play next, whether it's Buffalo or Montreal, I think you're still going to get a lot of that talk about the Canes. And it is what it is. It has been kind of fun from my perspective, though, to see the debate online between whether have the Avs had the easiest path to the Stanley Cup, or has it been the Canes that have had the easiest path to the Stanley Cup? Because obviously fan bases on different sides of the aisle will have reasons and justifications for either or.
Well, one thing about that before Matthew starts, because I know he's got a lot to say about that. There's 2 things about that. One, I would gladly take a first-round matchup with the Los Angeles Kings in their current state if given the option to do that instead of the Ottawa Senators. The second thing being spoils of war. They earn their first places. They get to play teams that are not as good.
Yeah, absolutely right, Brandon and Katie. Like that, spot on. Like this gets me irritated because I saw it was the other day. I was driving around listening to some hockey pundits spat off the songs. They haven't really played anyone. And those same types were saying, yeah, we're picking Ottawa against us. And it's just this cycle, it's a meme now. It's a cycle of that, Cade's overrated. They're going to lose to Ottawa, and they dismantle them. And it's like, oh, well, Ottawa wasn't that great. The same folks are saying the same thing over and over again on repeat. It's you can't make this stuff up. And as far as like how the series is actually gone, like I have to talk about this. Because it's another thing that's really grinding my gears when people are, going after Taylor Hall, when frankly, on another look, that shouldn't even been a penalty at all. It should have been taken off because Sanheim was already falling down. He didn't even really hit him. It almost looked like he hit him in the head. He didn't. It was actually, he was already kind of falling backwards, and Taylor Hall just kind of was leaning against the boards. So frankly, that shouldn't even been a penalty at all. But regardless, everyone who's watching, you can tell Philly is trying to injure Jarvis. They're trying to hurt his shoulder. They are going after him. They're deliberately targeting his shoulder. It's not just a normal check. They are trying to test him. And if we're going to say that that's a legit thing to do, because everyone knows that Jarvis has an injured shoulder, then I don't want to hear one freaking word about Taylor Hall playing with an edge. It's about time. It's about damn time this team has had that kind of FU in them. We've certainly had it done to us by eventual champions. So I don't want to hear it. Grow a set or just shit or get off the pot. Like I don't care.
That was the narrative for years. The Canes are too soft. The Canes don't have that physical edge. We've been hearing that since they made the Eastern Conference Finals in the 18-19 season. We've been hearing that for years. And you finally get a player who walks that line. When Matthew Tkachuk does it, it's stunning, brave, and innovative. When
Sam Bennett,
when Taylor Hall does it, it is terrorism and tantamount to war crimes. Make up your mind and set a standard.
It's absolutely absurd, and I have had enough of that nonsense. And I hope I'll be doing some more. I hope Taylor Hall goes out there and levels someone. Shout out to Sean Walker, flattened Alex Bump in Game 3. That was great to see. More. Miller being an absolute menace out there. And I love what Carter was talking about. Just they're throwing their hissy fit and just whining and complaining at the end of the game, and the kids just sitting there laughing. You saw what was that? There's shot of them sitting on the bench. Taylor Hall's just like sitting on the edge, just like oh, y'all are pathetic.
Alex Bump is going to be a very good player, though.
He is a good player, and so is Porter Martone. The Flyers are gonna get a lot better, and they're gonna be a problem in a few years. But on this series, win or lose tonight, the Canes should be able to get things done. As far as any substitutions, I mean, I would just say let's get this done now and give Jarvis the extra extended week and a half that he'll need to get some recovery, because he's the one who needs it more than anyone.
So actually, Katie, I really want to hear your thoughts on that, because you saw what I said about I would prefer Jarvis just not be on power play 1 tonight. I'd prefer Jarvis just not be in the lineup personally, because his shoulder is clearly screwed. I want to know what you think about that.
I mean, you're up 3-0. Sitting Jarvis wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if it is that serious, but I just don't see the Canes doing that. I think that they believe that he brings enough defensive prowess and contributes in other ways that he is too valuable. And I mean, he can shoot well enough. What was it, a couple games ago he scored? So when he was with Stahl, right? He was with Stahl and Ehlers. That's right. Ehlers found him. So I don't know. We'll see. I think that if it's not something that can be fixed with a week of rest, I just don't see them making that kind of sacrifice to their lineup. I think they'll take Jarvis as is, with all the other benefits that he brings to his game, even if he isn't able to shoot as strongly as he can. The one thing that kind of confuses me is if there is a big issue with his shoulder, why they wouldn't perhaps put him more permanently with Martinook and Stahl and pop Ehlers up in order to give that top line more oomph, because they came out, they looked good with the power play, so they finally started producing on the power play, but still 5-on-5 has been a big struggle for Aho, Svech, and Jarvis, and perhaps a little time with Ehlers and the playmaking and the way he's been seeing the ice and doing zone entries and that sort of thing could be a real shot in the arm, because there's still another level the Canes can reach. As well as they've been playing, as much as they've been dominating, particularly with the goaltending and in the defensive game, they still could find more offense, and it starts with that top line. And if they can get that top line going and still be getting contributions from the second line and from the depth, they are going to be a handful for whomever they end up playing moving forward.
And there's a short route to that. I know that I've banged this drum many a time, but Seth Jarvis is basically playing with one arm right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not much is going to change if he's playing on the left. Put Svechnikov on the right. I know. I've been banging that drum for years. I know that I also banged the Try Natchez at center drum, which was also a very bad idea. See, I'll admit when I'm wrong, because I know I sat there and I said Try Natchez at center, Try Natchez at center, and I'm banging my hand on the desk like I'm Bam Bam from the Flintstones, and I was wrong about that. I'm willing to admit that, but I think under these circumstances that might be something to try.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, yeah, if you're bringing Ehlers up to the top line, then keep Ehlers on the left and let Svech play on the right. I mean, what was the goal that Svech scored during the power play?
It was on the right side of the ice.
Right side. So I really think that could work. And something has got to give with Aho. I don't know what's been going on with him. If he's just gripping the stick too hard, trying to make that extra pass, not trusting his own instincts and his own abilities, but he has got to break out of this funk.
Well, his pass on the power play was superb. His pass there was no look. Yeah, so no look. Yeah, I caught it. And I was surprised because they tried that play twice beforehand and it didn't work. And I was like, are they going to, is Phil going to fall for it again? And yep, they fell for it again. And so that was pretty impressive. 3 times a charm. And, but yeah, like I gotta say, like, man, what is Freddie on? He is just on something here. And I don't know if it'll be, sustainable to the end, but I'm happy to ride it as long as it can. We said, I think it was us. Hey, hang on a second, bud. Sorry. Hey. Yeah. Okay. Well, you need to give me a moment. All right. Sorry, it's my son. So we said a couple, like months before the playoffs that, if Freddie started, that would be a bad thing. We all wanted Bussy. And then a little before the playoffs, we said, okay, we're going to need both Bussy and Freddie. I don't know. I mean, if it's just 16 wins straight on to the end, I mean, maybe Freddie can keep it going the entire time. I don't know. Like I highly doubt that that Buffalo or Montreal would be this kind of, I don't want to say cakewalk, but we're just clearly proving our superiority to both Ottawa and to Philadelphia. It would definitely be a lot more of a challenge against Buffalo or Montreal. So maybe there's when we would need to, if Montreal or Buffalo starts shelling Freddie Anderson, if he gets lit up, then you make a goalie change. But until then, I don't see a need to.
And no, I think it would have to happen in a couple different games too, because it's been so long now since Bussy has played that I think you need to give Freddie the benefit of the doubt, allow him an opportunity to get a bounce back, because going to the Avs and Minnesota series, we saw that Minnesota was riding their hot-handed goaltender in Wallstad, and he gets shelled in a game. They pull him and put Gus in, and it ends up being even worse because Gustafson hasn't played in over
Yeah.
3 weeks and has now put Minnesota in the 2-0 hole that they're in. And so I'd hate for something like that to happen with the Canes, where Freddie has one bad game and he's automatically yanked for Bussy, and then because Bussy's rusty,
Right.
end up
Good point.
with another difficult situation. So yeah, I think it would take a couple of rough outings in a row for Freddie before we'll have a chance to see Bussy. And Bussy will have his opportunity. He is signed with the team for the next couple of seasons. So
here's one thing I want to cite about Aho. And Katie, I'm going to have you segue something after this.
Okay.
Because you made a really good point about something, and I never thought about it this way, but I'll let you know what it is. You said, is Sebastian Aho actually the Jordan Staal replacement? And that has been incredibly thought-provoking for me, and I've been thinking about it ever since, and I think you're right. Now listen to these numbers. This is Sebastian Aho on the penalty kill throughout the entirety of the playoffs. 20 minutes and 40 seconds played. 1 goal against, 1.7 expected goals against. So he's preventing goals above expected. Kind of like how you have XGSA with goaltenders. He has kind of the same thing going on as a forward. He basically did score a shorthanded goal that was 5-on-5 in name only when a penalty was expiring in the first series. At 5-on-5, let me pull it back up here. At 5-on-5, 1-1, expected goals percentage at 38.87, but everything else is above 50%. That sounds very Jordan Staal of 2 seasons ago type numbers. And we know that he's great defensively. I think that what you said there kind of makes sense, because Jordan Staal is not a 3C on the Carolina Hurricanes. He plays a much bigger role, especially this season since he was put on the power play. And Aho is the next captain of this team. If he's not, I'm going to be very upset. And I say that as one of the biggest fans alive of Jacob Slavin. Sebastian Aho is kind of already taking on that role Jordan Staal has taken on since Justin Williams stepped away and Jordan Staal became the captain of the team. I'm a firm believer that you are correct about that, and that Sebastian Aho is going to take that role not only on the ice, but in the locker room. And I would like for you to elaborate on it further.
Well, yeah, I definitely think, especially as Stahl's career starts to wind down, that Aho's responsibility as far as taking over for him will increase and increase. Right now in the playoffs, I'm really not wanting Aho to play his Jordan Staal role, since we still have Jordan Staal. I'd like to see him show up on the score sheet and be a bit more of an offensive powerhouse that we know he's also capable of being. And that will always be something that distinguishes him from Staal. He will always be more productive and more talented offensively. But Rod has just really shaped him into the 200-foot player that he is, the 200-foot center that he is. And as he gets older, it's just going to become a more and more prominent part of his game. At which point, then there's a bit of a conundrum. Once Staal does retire in 2, 3, 4, however many years it takes him to decide it's time to hang
7.
it up. I wouldn't put it past him. Then if Aho takes over that Staal role, who takes over the Aho role? Because you still need that top scoring threat. And
Ryabkin.
I was going to say, he beat me to it. I knew he was going to say that. He was going to say Ryabkin.
I'm not sold on Ryabkin yet as far as being a 1C.
Well, see, it's like, that's one of the reasons I like having you guys on here at the same time, because Matthew is very much a prospects nerd, and everything that they like, every prospect has gold mine potential. Whereas with you and I, we're more of the here and now types when it comes to prospects. I think that there's a ton of potential there with Ryabkin, but replacing Sebastian Aho is going to be incredibly difficult in that role. That's one of the reasons why I clamored up and down for Carolina to try and acquire Robert Thomas.
Mm-hmm. I think once they find their 1 seed, that's going to be how they do it. I think it'll be through a trade. I think it'll be for somebody who is ready to come in and take over that job and that responsibility as it stands in the moment. And who that would be, I mean, that's probably a conversation for the off season when we're really, really bored and need something to talk about. But it is beautiful to be able to talk about these things, knowing that the Canes are so well set up moving forward that they will be able to continue growing and building and evolving their roster and still be in a competitive window many seasons down the road because of how they are constructed currently and how they have their salary cap in such a beautiful position moving forward.
Yeah, that's one thing when you were talking with Carter, Brandon, about maybe us having a potential letdown in the future in a future season because of extended cup runs. And one thing that could prevent that from happening is the next generation of Hurricanes graduating. And and in fact, frankly, we're seeing it even this one when Aho, Svechnikov, and Jarvis were struggling for a little bit, at least to start, and it was picked up by the next generation of Stankoven and Blake, and Hall having a resurgence because Hall has had a bit of time where he hasn't had extended cup runs either. So I think that's real. I think there's some of the fatigue of of postseason play maybe affecting, or at least taking a while for them to get their legs going. I think from what I've seen, at least from my eye test, Aho. Sorry, Johnny, knock that off over there, will you?
It's all good, buddy.
Kids. But, I might have to go in a second to help that, but for my eye test, their play hasn't bothered me. Like, I of course, I'd like to see them put up more results and more points and more goals, but they've handled their job, especially in their own zone. They've taken care of their own business, and I think they've gotten a little unlucky. And since they've been winning, it hasn't really. Obviously, the winning takes the edge off of a lot of things. If they were losing, then that would be a far bigger problem. But because they are taking care of their own business and they look like they're passing the eye test to me, they're still generating chances. Their play hasn't bothered me that much.
Yeah, and see, one other thing about it is it's like they've had two very, very tough matchups as far as shutdown lines. In the first round, they had to deal with the Pinto line, which is the closest replication you have to the Stahl line, maybe in the entire league. It's definitely one of the closest ones.
Mm-hmm.
You notice last night, you didn't have Noah Cates. And the Couturier line was probably the one that you match up with the Aho line at home to try and mitigate how much they would score normally on paper. That's not really happening. I think if Carolina were to advance past this round and play a team like Montreal, Montreal does not have a shutdown line as good as the aforementioned two teams does. That's where you might see the Aho line, especially at home when they had last change, starting to score a lot. I think that line will come out of its slump, but when you're talking about what they've had to deal with, and this is not me making excuses for them, but when you're talking about what they've had to deal with as far as teams having resources to mitigate their scoring and shut them down, they've had to deal with two of the toughest matchups, particularly in the first round, two of the toughest matchups that they could get, especially the Pinto line.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But by the same token, they still gotta have more from them. You gotta have more from them. I mean, if they're gonna draw even, I suppose that's something. But the further we get into the playoffs, their Canes are going to need greater contributions from more places. So far, the other lines have been able to step up and mitigate some of that lack of production, which was an issue in the past that they haven't had so far. But what happens if the Stankoven line does cool off a bit? I mean, the last game was the first game that the Stankoven line did not factor in on the score sheet at all. And the reason that was no problem is because you got the 2 power play goals, the shorthanded goal, and then the Ehlers 5v5 goal. But special teams carried the day as far as that was concerned. But that's not always going to be possible every single game. So what's it going to look like moving forward? Again, if teams focus more on shutting down Staghoven and making Aho and Svetch and Jarvis prove that they can start factoring in as well on the score sheet.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But
I'll
one
be
thing
right
that I've noticed, one thing I've noticed about this team, especially compared to last year's team, is the depth is just so much better. It's just so much better than it was last year and even the years previously. And also the defense, like Miller, has just been he's like almost like another Slavin, except more physical. Like Johnny, will you knock that off? Golly, kids.
That's like when you jump on the live stream to have everything happen at once.
Yeah, no, of course, it never fails. That's why I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do this, but yeah, all right, they're playing around. They're just being, toddlers, 3-year-olds, whatever.
I have 2 boys of my own, and
yeah.
Trust me, when they get to be 11 and 14 like mine, it still doesn't change.
Yeah, and now he just bumped his head. Oh boy. Well, so my point was that just our defense, and Miller in particular, has just been stellar. They've been having a healthy Sean Walker. You've seen what that's been able to do.
Oh, it's been so
frankly, there's I don't know if you know the guys, the Florida Panthers, Fluffy Sports, whatever it is. I don't know if you know him. He does the Florida Panthers channel. He's actually a pretty decent guy. He made the point where he said watching the Hurricanes was like watching the teenager play around while the parents are out. The parents being the Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want another crack at him. Like I want this team to play against the Panthers again, because I think it's going to end up a lot differently this time when we got the likes of Miller, like a healthy and
yes, exactly.
Nikishin. I want him again. I want another crack at him because I think it'll be a lot different this time around.
You're talking about Florida,
I
aren't
think
you?
people do not truly value just how much it hurt the Canes having Walker and Chatfield injured for that Florida series. It really probably would have been a much different outcome, or at the very least,
I'll be right back.
7, if those two had still been in the lineup and been able to contribute. We were just talking about how much we love Walker and Miller together and the way that they're contributing, allowing Slavin and Chatfield to do their shutdown thing. But the two of them are just probably the best 200-foot D pair that they have as far as taking care of both ends of the ice and being factors on both ends. And you know me, I'm a big Walker fan. It started just because he came from Colorado, even though he was barely in Colorado long enough for a cup of coffee. But because I was introduced to him there and I already knew him coming in here, I've just loved having him on the Canes, loved what he's contributed, just love the leadership he's provided as well. And he and Miller together they've got that chemistry figured out, and they anticipate each other so well.
So I do have to ask you this then. I have considered who I'm going to get on my Whalers sweater. I have been between Walker and Miller because, I'm a defenseman, so I like defensemen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of torn just because Miller's probably going to be here longer. But I really like how balanced Walker's game is. If you look at a defenseman and say that guy is 50-50 on both sides of the puck in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at Walker like a guy who's like go out there and shut them down and contribute some possession and contribute some offense, when I look at that, I see more of Sean Walker. That's why, and you may remember back when he got signed in the offseason a couple of seasons ago, when everyone was panicking, except for you, me, and like 7 other people. I was like, no, you don't understand how good of a player you're getting with Sean Walker. This guy is as utilitarian as they come. If you're talking about a Swiss Army knife of a right-handed defenseman, which is not a common thing in the league, he is it.
Yeah. He's fantastic. And I love his like he has a lot of sandpaper to him too, that if you don't watch him all the time, you don't necessarily see it. But I just love how he's not afraid for the big hit. He's not afraid to get up in people's grill. I mean, my one big complaint when it comes to Walker is that when he shoots the puck on net, it either misses 3 feet wide or it's dead center in the middle of the logo. It's like,
Yeah.
can we not find a happy medium in here? Because you'd have so many more points if you actually got it on goal, but not right in the breadbasket. That would be
Man after your own heart, right, Brandon?
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing though. It's like when you actually go to games, you see how when you're not at the mercy of where the camera's at, you see how irritating of a player Sean Walker is. He gets under people's skin, and I said that about the first season he was in Carolina when he was paired with Gostisbehere. I was like, this dude irritates the hell out of people with how he plays, because he'll give you a little whack at the back of the leg, which, for those of you who have played before, there's not a whole lot of padding there. I know how annoying that can be. I may have gotten a 2-game vacation one time for something I said to somebody after whacking them on the back of the knee. I will not verify that. I will also not repeat what I said. But I have a great appreciation for somebody like Sean Walker, when this team has lacked sandpaper for years. That's one of the reasons I was really excited about Carolina signing him, because they want to talk about Brett Pesce this, Brett Pesce that, and Brett Pesce is the type of, the player archetype that I really like. But Sean Walker has that extra edge to his game. He has the little bit of the offensive upside. When I see a player like that, I like a lot of what I see because of what some of the stuff he does after the whistle, some of the stuff he does when the camera's not focused on him, just to kind of, play the psychological warfare card. And he does that very well with Miller. He did it well with Gostisbehere, but he does it even more with Keandre Miller, who's got a little bit of that stuff in his game as well, which I think is going to increase over the course of time. But I think that people really sleep on how, like I was telling Tom before, because he was on here before, and I hate that I couldn't have you and him on at the same time, Katie, because that would be great. But Walker has got that. If I had to nominate 2 people on the Hurricanes for the Do Your Job award, it's Walker and Carrier.
I tell you, Walker, I'll be honest. Like, I always thought he was like good, but not like anything like unbelievably, like stellar or crazy outside of the league that jumps out at me. But what was it? I think it was game 3 or 4. I can't remember, against Ottawa, when he's bloodied and then he's just smiling. Like when he's got that look to me, I was like, holy shit, we got a guy here. This guy is good. We need this. When I saw that, when he was just like had that kind of grin of like, with blood streaming down his face like that, like an absolute insane maniac, that he enjoyed it. And I was like, oh yeah, there we go. That's the stuff. That was perfect. And from that point on, I'm now a Sean Walker absolute stan for life.
When you use that term, the stuff, I love that term because, the right stuff and everything like that, the whole Chuck Yeager thing, I have a great appreciation for that. He did fly one of these near the end of his life, which is really cool. Oh, and by the way, I have to shout out, especially since Katie's here, rest in peace, Bobby Cox. Yeah, Bobby Cox passed away today.
Oh, okay.
Wow, yeah, God rest his soul. Wow, legendary.
Very
legendary manager. Wow. God rest his soul. R.I.P.
Yeah, no, he was a pretty awesome dude. I'm glad he got to see the Braves win one more time before he went, because he'd been bad for a while.
On a happier note, though, of course, I think Miller's also got some of that new dad energy. I think we're seeing that a little bit too. And so that's him. There's that gif going around of him, like like his I love his expressions. Like he's like, like that kind of look he was given some of the Flyers where they were doing their nonsense, and the fact that it was just so perfect how unbothered he was. by their antics. And how look, you see how Konechny just absolutely losing it. He's absolutely going absolutely insane. And Miller and Wagner, they're just sitting there laughing at him.
And when Jankowski got manhandled, he had the nervous laughter, like, "Oh my god, I'm getting sent to the principal's office." Whereas Keandre Miller was like, "Haha, that's cute. I will destroy you," type of energy. But it's the same thing, Matthew. Like when Dave Johnson or Bobby Valentine were to go away or pass away, I would offer the same condolences.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. I just loved seeing, the finally we've got some FU energy, because it's always been done to us. We've always like it had been, the Hurricane that would just get frustrated and the kind of the mentally deteriorate as a series would go on against Florida or against the Rangers, to a lesser extent the Rangers, but seeing that we're in their heads, we are completely in the Flyers' heads. They can't. We are living rent free in them right now, and that is just great to see. We got to keep that, because that's the hallmark of a champion.
Yeah, the attitude is really good up and down the lineup. I did see, I just refreshed my Twitter page. It looks like no lineup changes tonight. So I was kind of wondering if maybe they might bring in D'Lo to help manage perhaps some of the temper flare-ups that the Flyers might engage in if they get down at some point. But looks like Rod's going to trust the guys that have brought him there so far.
I mean, and that's the thing. They can handle themselves. I mean, like Shane Gostisbehere, like going up against a much bigger Ristolainen and just like tossing him around. It is great. Yeah, I mean, Tom was. Yeah, I mean, I don't want anyone to get injured, but I just want to see them all stick up for themselves and for each other. And that's not only are they doing that, but like what was someone else said that they try to go after. He said like endearingly, I think, but like our midgets. The midget line of Stankoven and Blake to try to try to beat the crap out of them, and they ended up getting the crap beat out of them by said midgets, and it was just pure gold.
And while I'm at it, Shane and Taylor both, I want to say something about this. Let it go, dude. It's over. It's over. just let it go. It's over. I did the same thing. When it's over, it's over. Just let it go. You're in the NHL. You're both married to beautiful women. Just let it go. Because like Taylor or Shane Gostisbehere, when he got into it with Ristolainen, I was like, dude, come on. Like when his helmet came off, I was like, dude, it's over. Just shave it, man. It's over. Rock the look. Rock it unapologetically. That's what I do. The first time I shaved my head, I was super nervous about it. I took a selfie, which is not something I normally do. I took a selfie and I sent it to my girlfriend because we didn't live together yet. And I was like, what do you think? She's like, that looks good. Keep doing that because you looked really bad when you just shave your head, let it go. And that's what I did. So I think both those guys should do that because, I mean, Gostisbehere's hair in particular is just, it's gone. Just let it go. It's over.
Speaking of Ghost, though, I think that that's something that will be interesting to follow tonight and any game in the future because he does not seem like the same guy. I don't know if it's an injury issue like we're speculating Jarvis is having. He's being slowed up by that. Or if he's caught up into something like Aho is, where he's just in his head and kind of in a funk and needs a couple of good plays to go his way in order to start getting his mojo back. I'm really kind of on the fence as to what the reason is behind his struggles because I don't think that he and Nikishin have been nearly as impactful in the offensive zone as they have the capability of being. And I would like to see more of that because I really think it's a special weapon that the Canes have that not a lot of other teams can boast of from their third pairing.
Yeah, Gostisbehere seemed a little bit off to me mentally more than anything.
He's been hurt on and off all year, so I think that might be part of it too. He's probably battling through it. Sorry, that's my son right Yes, but yes. It's other people on the TV, isn't it? Very exciting. Forgive me. But yeah, I think those. He made a couple of moves in Game 3 that I like. Where he kind of did his little fake out at the blue line, which is always like it makes my heart skip a beat. Hey, yes, thank you, bud. Thank you, bud. Yeah. Makes my heart skip a beat because I'm always scared of the blue line turnover, but it worked, and he got pretty good. A pretty good chance out of it. So hopefully that's a good sign of things to come.
I would hope so, because if they play Buffalo or Montreal in the next round, that's going to be pretty important, especially against Montreal being able to make those plays at the blue line and everything like that. Because, like I said, Montreal struggles to get the puck back, but once they do, watch out. They're a very good team once they have it. And Katie, you made a good point about Buffalo. They have this big, physical, stingy defense.
Mm-hmm.
So feel free to elaborate on that. But both those teams scare me a little bit for different reasons.
Well, Darlene's just a mean customer to begin with. He is so talented, but he is also physical, and he will go after them, which we already saw in the regular season with the way that he likes to play. And I'm sure he's ratcheted that up a notch, especially with the thrill of finally making it to the postseason with Buffalo. But it doesn't stop with him. Obviously, I have a partiality to the former Av and Bowen Byram, who is the only person in the entire Buffalo lineup that has a Stanley Cup. So he has a lot of that leadership. He's matured. He's leaned into his game, especially on the offensive side a little bit more, and has contributed to that decor quite a bit. And it's just they're big and they're mean and they'll lay the body and they're hungry for it. And most of them have a fair amount of offensive skill too, where they can hurt you from the blue line. So if the Canes did end up going up against Buffalo, they really are going to have to dig in and be willing to meet them where they're at there, to find that as Tulski likes to say, premium ice, and get good looks, get good scoring chances, and not be kept to the perimeter, because we know that's the death knell for the Canes offense, is if they're content to just become the Corsi Canes and fire pucks from distance and hope that maybe they get a lucky bounce or rebound or deflection or something like that to go for a goal.
Now, that makes total and complete sense, because the other thing with Buffalo's defense, you're not going to just do what Carolina does when they're having a hard time with another team defense. They'll just chip pucks behind them and go get them.
Mm-hmm.
With Buffalo, that's not going to happen without Buffalo punishing you for it.
No, that's a solid puck retrieval team. I do hope Montreal gives them a run for their money and tires them out. I as much as I love Aaron, my fellow podcaster with Storm Tracker, I think Buffalo's going to end up taking this, but I'm glad Montreal won yesterday, because I want them to beat each other up and wear each other out and tire each other, because it will make the Canes' job just that much easier. It's part of why I want the Canes to close it out tonight. Yeah, could they end up with a week to 10 days or more rest between series? It is possible. But if they are not playing hockey games, it also means that they are not getting hurt and they have an opportunity to go into the next series in as good a condition as possible. And after, like I said, after last season with losing Walker and Chatfield, I want the team to be as close to 100% as possible for the conference finals, and if they make it past the conference finals, for the Stanley Cup finals. They've got to take care. I want them to take care of business tonight, so they don't have those issues, and then let Buffalo and Montreal ding each other up through 6 or 7 games.
I'm totally okay with that. The one thing I agree with Aaron on, I don't know if she said 6 or 7 games, but I still think Montreal is going to take that series in 7 games. That team is the perfect countermeasure to the Hurricanes, if you ask me.
It would be a fantastic series, that's for sure. It's mind-boggling, though, that the Canadiens have been this good with getting almost no contribution, or even no contribution from their top line. I think Caulfield has no points, not a one.
He's got a goal. He has at least one.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
there was a power play. I think it's 5v5. He has no 5v5
Yeah.
points. No even strength points.
Yeah, so I had to turn my camera off because my kids are running all over me here. But yeah, one thing I wanted to, because you mentioned this earlier, with people claiming that our competition has been weak. It's like, well, one of the things is like, win more hockey games. Win more hockey games in the regular season, then you earn the matchups with the lower seed or the wild card. So I think it wasn't Erin, because she's obviously way too smart to say something like that. But it was another Habs fan that was like, "Oh yeah, the Hurricanes they have to play Philly. It's so easy." It's like, well, you could have won more hockey games, then you wouldn't have had to play Tampa and Buffalo. But I still do agree. I agree actually with Brandon that I think Montreal is going to win this. Buffalo had the energy in game one, but boy, did Montreal ever just take it to them in game two. And I think the series is going to end up more like that than game one. But we'll see. I mean, Buffalo, they've impressed me so far. And boy, if it's us, it would be fitting to have to go through Buffalo again in the ECF, because they are, as Brandon said, they are our blood enemies, and they are
doesn't go back that far enough for that. So
yeah, well, you got it.
I'll just enjoy watching the rest of y'all.
If you can, Katie, there's a great video. I'll see if I can find it and send it to you. There's a great video of a recap. It was actually made pretty recently, of a recap of that Eastern Conference Finals in 2006, and it went through the whole thing and the drama of it, and it was like, even that was my first year really watching hockey, so I didn't realize like how intense playoffs can get. And ever since then, nothing I've seen in 20 years has really measured up. Even the Stanley Cup Finals wasn't that intense. That was probably the most antagonistic playoff series I've ever seen in my 2 decades of watching hockey.
The question is, does it measure up to the 90s and early 2000s Avs and Red Wings rivalry?
Yes.
It made those actually. People were even saying at the time, even at the time, that they were saying you usually don't see this anymore. Even in 2006, that kind of series, they were saying this is really, it harkened back to an even earlier age. They usually don't see that anymore, and that was at the time they said that. So that to give you an idea.
Yeah, no, that's how that series was. But like, Buffalo is like, if we're America, they're the British. That's how deep that hatred is. That it's 1776 and 1812 all at once. That's how bad it is. Like that is Carolina's one true enemy, is the Sabres.
Well, could end up being a great series. So, I mean, regardless, I'm assuming, obviously all of this is assuming that the Canes wrap it up. I don't see Philly having any chance of coming back and winning 4 straight. I suppose weirder things have happened, but we're going to just assume that the Canes eventually take care of business, whether it's tonight or Monday night.
Well, they have done it before. I will say that. In their past, they have done it before. It's been a while, but they have done it before. And but of course, then the next year after they did that, they ended up getting swept by the same team. So
Philly's just too injured, and their coach is just doing some really weird things when it comes to how he's deploying his people. So again, Philly might, just out of desperation, manage to get one with a couple lucky bounces tonight, but it's not going to last. But anyway, moving forward, the thing is, whether it's Buffalo or whether it's Montreal, there's enough. I think whichever one comes out of that series is going to be the one whose goaltending doesn't show cracks. But both goaltending groups are still suspect. And granted, I think it's fair for people to question whether or not Freddie will eventually become suspect in his goaltending, because his ability to do what he's been doing in short stints is well documented, but he really doesn't have a long string of dominant performance, particularly in the postseason, that most Stanley Cup winning goaltenders do. So I understand, the whole goaltending question, but I think that the Buffalo and the Montreal goaltending is very, very beatable, especially from a Canes perspective, if they're able to deploy and play the same way that they played against the Senators and the Flyers.
I agree. All right, y'all, that's about all I got.
All right.
You've been
Yeah.
talking a lot longer than we have, for sure. Hey, by the way, before we go, though, I saw somebody in the comments when I was logging on to see who you were talking to before suggest something along the lines of trying to get Drury back. And I just want to tell them, if they are still listening, that that is not going to happen.
No, they love
That
him
was
there.
me. That was me.
It's not going to happen.
Straight
I'm
KK for
sorry.
Drury,
It's
1 for
not
1, and
gonna
then just because that's what it should have. That's what we should have done the first time. It should have been KK instead of Drury, but whatever. That was probably the Avs that insisted on Drury instead. Good on them.
Yep. It's worked out well for them. They're not sending Drury anywhere.
Nah, Drury ain't going nowhere. He finally got the opportunity to need it in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. He's a great face-off guy for them. He's a great penalty killer for them, just like he was in Carolina. But now he got to a team that did not have the redundancy at that position that Carolina had, and he's making the most of the opportunity.
Yep. Well, thank you for doing this, Brendan. It was a lot of fun. It's a good appetizer before we hit the game here in a couple of hours. So appreciate it.
No, it'll be. We'll do another one here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do another one here in a little bit. But I got up really early this morning. I went to work. I only did a half day, but I'm exhausted, so I'm gonna go take a quick nap before 6 o'clock comes around, and then we will go from there. But Katie, thank you very much. Matthew, thank you very much.
Indeed. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yep, I will
I'll
talk
take
to you
care.
guys during the game and after the game, obviously.
Peace.
Sounds
Peace.
good.
All right, everyone, thank you for joining us. But we're going to go ahead and call it a day. And I'll talk to y'all after the game. Matthew, thank you very much again.
Did it take turns talking with you? Whee!